town council meeting for April 1st. I'm going to reconvene our town council meeting at 7:17 p.m. All council members are present. All right, looking out in the audience, I know we've got a group. Mine's turned off, so I don't know.
They need to turn down the gain. Mine?
Everybody turn your microphones off. Everyone's off. Sit down here. Or is it you guys? Come on, snap. All right, let's try this. Was it in front of the attorney? All right, so everyone look at the attorney. Kristen, thank you very much. All right. Now, I know we've got a group from like Legend High School, I think it is. Yeah. All right. So here's the deal, guys. From not only them, but anyone else in the room who is under 18, stand up. Stand up. All right. We've got 2 scouts right up front. You 2 scouts, come on down, but the rest of you under 18-year-olds stay standing up. Scouts, come on down. You guys get to lead us in the very absolute most important part of tonight's meeting, and that is honoring our nation with the Pledge of Allegiance. So everyone who's under 18 is going to lead as well. You guys, the floor is going to be yours. When we turn around and face the flag, everyone's going to wait to hear you guys start, okay? You ready? Big responsibility. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fantastic job, guys. Give them a round of applause. All right. Now, council, we've got one special presentation tonight. If you all will indulge me, I'm going to kind of step down here for a second. One of the things that makes Parker so unique and Parker so special is how we support our locally owned business community here in Parker. In fact, Parker is such an incredible place to live because people choose to not only call it their home, but a place to start a business and provide for their family. Tonight, do we have Esther and John Lee in the room?
Yes, they're coming.
They're coming. I hear a baby crying. That's not them. That's not John. Esther and John Lee, come on down here for a sec. So, I actually first met Esther and John probably, must have been about 5 years ago, 6 years ago or so. These 2 wonderful people own a business here in Parker, Parker Tailors. They're celebrating their 25th year of business in Parker. When I first got elected mayor and the Parker Rotary Club had the first mayor's ball, and I've never owned a tuxedo in my life, and one of the stores was having like a buy 3 get 5 free sale or something on tuxedos, so I gathered up a bunch of people and I bought my first tuxedo. I spent like $100 on it, right? Now, as I know it's going to come to a shock to you guys, clothes don't fit me very well usually, right? I'm kind of misproportioned. For some reason, gravity kind of hit down here a little too hard. So this tuxedo didn't really fit off the rack. So I came into their shop right after that I first met them, and I had never been to a tailor before. And I wasn't sure what the process was going to be. And I got to tell you, they marked me up and did all this stuff and had this tuxedo fitting like a gem. And it still to this day is easy and fun to wear because of what they've done. Great locally owned business here in Parker. So Esther and John Lee of Parker Tailor celebrates their 25th year of business in the town. They started the store with the last of their savings. And with hard work and support from the community, they put 2 daughters, I know we've got at least one of the daughters over here, 2 daughters through college and paid for their weddings. They easily have served tens of thousands of people in Parker, from prom dresses to military promotions to a fat mayor's tuxedo. So for you guys, I have a little certificate here. This is a certificate of recognition for Esther and John Lee in recognition of Parker Tailor's 25th year of business, providing service to the residents of the town of Parker. Thank you very much for making Parker such a wonderful place. they opened their business, let me think here for a sec. When you opened your business 25 years ago, I was 19 years old, I think. So I would have come to you for a homecoming or whatever if I was around at that time, right? Thank you guys very much for coming out. Here's that belly. All right. Next up on our agenda, we've got Parker Chamber of Commerce updates. Dennis Houston, are you in the audience tonight?
I'm sorry, I apologize. Dennis let me know he's not going to be make it tonight. He's got another meeting that's running a little long.
Okay, perfect. And then after that, we've got Downtown Business Alliance updates. Do we have members from the DBA here? Omar, come on down. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Absolutely. Omar Castillo, 12509 Prince Creek Drive, Parker, Colorado, 80134. It's a pleasure to see you all tonight. So good evening, Town Council members and Mayor Mike Wade. Thank you for having us tonight for the DBA update. My name is Omar Castillo and I am the treasurer for the Downtown Business Alliance. Our last meeting a couple weeks ago was to review our 2019 goals with the membership and explain what our focus is going into 2019. The following are high-level goals, and we spoke about details, and I'm going to go briefly over those real quick. Number one is to increase the DBA membership and enhance our member benefits. Number two is to drive traffic and sales for business in downtown Parker through our enhanced features on our website and social media, as well as our art walks that we sponsor throughout the summer. Goal number three is to work and improve our downtown district through projects such as connecting East and West Main Street, considering different various transportation options, trash cans and recycling receptacles for the businesses, Bluetooth speakers on lampposts, and purchase some art. Goal number four is to raise more money in 2019 and 2020 through fundraising events such as the Chili Cook-Off, which we did our first one last year, which turned out to be a great success, and we were thinking of coming up with another event throughout the year. Goal number five is to initiate efforts that will ensure the long-term viability of the DBA, such as getting involved in downtown and in pursuing grants for art purchases and other downtown improvements that we've talked about as a group. We are excited to be a part of improving Parker and being part of those improvements. Our next meeting will be April 10th, 9 a.m. at the Parker Library. John Fusa and Jason Rogers will be presenting at the My Main Street development updates. Any questions?
Council, questions for Omar? No?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys for all
Appreciate
that you do.
it. All right. Yes, give him a round of applause, Omar. I love it. All right, next up we have public comment. So this is for items that are not currently on our agenda. I have a sinking suspicion that most of the people in the room are here for the one item that is on our agenda. At that time, there will be public comment about that specific item. This is for general public comment for items not on our agenda. You'll see a clock above me, and I have one across the room as well. There's a 3-minute time limit on public comment. No action will be taken during this time for public comment. This is just an opportunity for you to make statements to council. There is, like I said, a 3-minute time limit. When you come up, you'll state your name and address for the record, and then after that, I'll hit the button and the timer will start counting down. When it gets down to 0, even if you're mid-sentence, I'm going to thank you very much and ask for the next person to come up for public comment so we can make sure everyone gets an opportunity. And like I said, if you're here for the item on the agenda, there will be public comment when that item comes up. So with that, we'll open general public comment at 7:25 p.m. Okay. And this is the time that everyone usually all of a sudden freezes, except we got one person coming down. So while he's coming down, they freeze because they're worried that I'm going to call on them. Yeah, exactly. It's like not like an auction house where I'm going to be like, okay, you just bought yourself a road. So name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, good evening, council members. I'm Isaac McCorkle. I live in Stone Ridge Terrace, 10158 Stone Ridge Terrace, Parker, Colorado, 80134. I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I would like the town council to consider measures that would reduce the impact of plastic bags and straws on our waterways and streams and oceans, and consider the fact that about 12 million barrels of oil are used per year in the United States just to produce those plastic bags that are polluting our environment. And I'd like you to consider measures to ban plastic bags and straws in Douglas County. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right.
So to be fair, there's a rule that I didn't state before public comment, and that is, we have to take the good with the bad. And that is, with public comment, both now and later, you're going to hear opinions that you agree with, and you're going to hear opinions that you don't agree with. One of the things that we all are, including the high school kids, they can act this way, but we're all adults here, right? So we're going to make sure there's no booing and no hissing, but to go along with that, no applause either, just so that we can keep it fair and like everyone have an opportunity, because this is a safe environment. We don't want anyone to feel like anxious to come up and talk because they're worried they might get booed or whatever. So, but thank you for the applause. They are always nice. All right, next up, anyone else up for general public comment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to close general public comment at 7:27 p.m. and we're going to move on to the next item, which is reports, items, and comments from mayor and council. John Dyack. See that? Little ping pong. Next time I'm going to pull like just out of nowhere.
Yeah, Mayor, I don't believe I have anything at this point in time. Thank you.
Okay. Debbie Lewis.
Had a meeting with, liaison meeting with Parks and Recs this afternoon, and everything's going along wonderfully. And one of the highlights was Saturday. There were about 150 people at the grand opening for our new racket club over next to the field house. So that was well attended and long awaited and very, very much appreciated.
Okay. Renee.
Unfortunately, I was out of town on business and then called to care for a sick mother. And I'm very bummed I missed the Racket Club opening, but congratulations to everybody that was involved with that.
Okay. Mr. Toborg.
I don't have anything
Yeah, see,
to report other than want to thank Legend. I'm a Legend dad, so don't make the other parents feel too bad, the Pondo and Chap guys. But thank you and welcome for being here.
You shouldn't have done that. Now they know your last name, and they're going to be like, to your kids, we saw your dad.
There, I had these signs around town.
They already had. All right. Cheryl.
I do have a couple of things. I went to the South Metro Fire District meeting, and believe it or not, they have a 15-member board currently until they have another election with all their mergers. They are dealing with several annexations of small pockets, small subdivisions, or areas that were outside of an area that are adjacent to the merger but were never incorporated into a fire district. And the other thing was an eye-opener, was a presentation by the town manager for Castle Pines. And I was made aware that they now have incorporated three corners of the intersection of Hess and Highway 83, or I-25. So that was interesting, and they're a very aggressive group. And then I went to the Parker Water and Sand meeting, and they have a big concern over House Bill 1278, which we talked about previously. So that's kind of where I've been.
Okay. Mr. Rivero.
The Racket Club grand opening was Saturday. I had the honor of attending. It was a great event, a ton of people. Parking over there was challenging. It was full, just to show the support and what I see as the need for the Racket Club. I am not a tennis player, nor am I a pickleball player yet, but it's got quite a following. But I just wanted to emphasize the public-private partnership that happened in this Racket Club, and to see the success of such a partnership is truly amazing to see. And besides that, we had partnership with Douglas County Governments over at the Field House the week prior. They showed the Racket Club, and we got to brag a little bit, so that was always nice. And I believe that's all I have.
Okay, awesome. So only a couple things I've got. The Parker Racket Club ribbon cutting, I was there as well. Got to use a big pair of scissors again to cut the ribbon. It is an example of the best of partnerships, of a public-private partnership. And for the kids in the room, I'm going to make sure that since your teacher will probably want this, I'm going to spend a little bit of extra time tonight at kind of explaining each little step so you get it. But also for those of you in the room who aren't aware of things, one of the responsibilities that these 6 members have up here, to be quite frank, is to spend your money. That's part of their job. And consistently, one of the number one things our citizens ask for time and time again is recreation, more parks and recreation. And a lot of people don't realize, some do, that in the town of Parker we have a dedicated half-cent sales tax, which was created by you guys, an initiative from our citizens to self-tax so that we can have world-class parks and recreation, which we do. But the unfortunate reality is stuff's expensive. You know, things get really expensive. In addition to the racket club, one of the other items that's asked for all the time is water. When can we have a pool facility? Ice, when can we have an ice facility? I know the pool facility alone, just the construction costs of that are somewhere close to $65 million, which is, you know, a majority of the town's entire budget for a year. So going forward, public-private partnerships like this are going to be really how most large recreation projects happen. I happened to be on council when this idea first got floated, and it was the local racket group who came in and said, hey, how about this idea? And it has come to fruition. It was a great facility that's going to bring people regionally into Parker to experience tennis, whether you're a beginner or an expert. If you haven't had an opportunity, go down and see it. You don't have to be a member to use the club. That's part of the public-private partnership. You can just walk in and pay your fee to get to use it. And of course, they're going to try to sell you a membership too, but that's the way business works. So that, and then the last thing, for those of you who also follow me, those who don't, you're looking at me going, the dude looks like a homeless guy with a big long beard and long hair that's slicked back. Every year I have a fundraising event for pediatric cancer called Shave the Mayor. That event this year is happening on April 27th, the last Saturday of the month. I only mention it because there's a little side fundraiser that we do of anyone who makes a donation to my account a winner will get to choose the color that I will dye my hair and wear it that way for the month. Last year it was rainbow colored. The year before it was Broncos orange and blue. It's been Rockies purple, pink and purple, all sorts of fun stuff. The winner was chosen today on Facebook Live, and if you want to see what the winning colors are, check out my Facebook Live feed tomorrow morning, because at 9:30 a.m. is when it's getting dyed here in Parker at Hair Color Experts. You'll get to see what it is, or come back and see me anytime between now and then, between the end of the month when it gets shaped. So that's what's going on with that. All right, so next up is our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine, will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There'll be no separate discussion on consent agenda items unless council votes to remove an item for individual discussion. Ordinances on the consent agenda are for introduction only and will not be removed for discussion. So kids, one of the biggest things that these 6 have to do when they're looking at ordinances and resolutions and things like that, they cannot do things outside of the public domain. Transparency means that they have to have everything that they have access to available to you guys, the citizens. So if you look at our agenda, and on the consent agenda, you see all sorts of items. In fact, items B through H are ordinances that say first readings. Those are laws. Those are things that are coming down the line. Well, they can't discuss anything until it's been available to the public. So first reading, which actually doesn't happen as an actual reading, it puts it into paper documents, is the opportunity for all that information to come into the public domain. 2 weeks later, they will have a second reading, and that's when we have a public hearing where the public can come in and testify on those individual items. But this way, there's kind of no surprises. This is the lead up, so this brings it into the public domain. So when you look through that sheet, that's what all that is on there for. So, council, we have consent agenda items 7A through 7L. On our consent agenda, I would entertain discussion or a motion, please.
I move to approve consent agenda items A through L.
Second.
We have a motion by Josh Rivero. We have a second by Renee Williams. Council, in just a few seconds, your magic box is going to appear on your screen.
I do.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
I had asked in the executive session to remove a couple items from the
Okay,
executive.
that happens out here. So that's why I just asked if there was anyone who had any items for discussion. This was the time to do it.
I do, simply because it's already at the resolution stage, and I hadn't seen prior issues on it with I and J.
Okay, so if you would like to make a motion to have I and J removed for further discussion.
I'd like to have I and J removed from the consent agenda.
For further discussion, because if you say remove, then they go away.
For further discussion, then.
Okay, we have a motion from Cheryl for removal. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Jeff. Since this isn't on our normal system and Chris is probably typing furiously, I'll do a voice vote on this. We have a motion by Cheryl and a second for Jeff to remove those 2 items for further discussion. Josh?
Yay.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Renee?
No.
Debbie? No. John? Yeah. Okay. Motion passes with 4 yeses and 2 noes. So before we go to those 2 items for discussion, And those, and Cheryl, those were items I and J, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to amend my motion.
Okay,
If I could move to approve consent agenda items A through H and K, please.
okay, we have a motion by Josh and a second by Renee. Chris, you got those typed? They're typing it up. And just to confirm, you want L as well? All the
apologize.
items except for I and J?
Yes.
Yes.
K and L, sorry. Consent agenda items A through H, L, or K and L, please.
Okay, and you're good still with the second, okay? They're typing over there on the computer real quick.
Sorry, Mike. I almost dropped you there, buddy.
Okay, in just a sec, there's your boxes, guys. Go ahead and vote. Okay, motion passes unanimously. So items I and J, Cheryl, what would you like to,
I just felt that the public deserved a little bit of notice of what those really were.
okay? So we would need a motion for item I unless you have discussion on it.
Well, all I have as discussion is, that was not brought up that I'm aware of, and I don't know if that the public's been made aware of what is happening here.
This brings it into the public domain.
Right.
So you're not
So-
voting on the approval of these two resolutions, you're just bringing those, am I
Forward.
correct?
So the packet is published.
Yes,
It's
so we have
online.
those out there.
The public has access to it. There's
Yep.
memos in the packets, and certainly staff can address any questions that Councilmember Pogue may have concerning those two agenda items.
Before we
Or-
vote for approval on them.
Exactly, or anybody
Okay.
else on the
So-
dais.
I
Cheryl,
don't
what questions do you
want an
have?
extended discussion, but I would like staff to just address what's going to be happening with I.
Okay? Tom, anyone on your end, you guys want to address that?
It's Fusa, isn't it?
Or is Fusa still in? Is Fusa here?
No.
I can speak to it a little bit.
Okay.
Is that? Yeah.
I'm happy to address it in the absence of Mr. Fusa. This is an annual resolution that Town Council considers, and this deals with allowing for additional signage for the Main Street businesses that would be affected by the closure of Main Street. And this would apply to Parker Days, Trick or Treat on Main Street, and the Parker Christmas Carriage Parade. And again, it does allow for these businesses that would be impacted to put out additional signage, again, because of the closure of Main Street.
Okay, is there an issue of how long, just during the event, or how big the signs are? Or?
There's a limitation on the size of the signs. So if you take a look at the resolution itself, it says each affected business is allowed unlimited window signs. As that term is defined in the Parker Municipal Code, each affected business is allowed a banner not to exceed 40 feet. And then the duration of the partial waiver is 5 p.m. on Wednesday, June 5th, 2019, to midnight, Monday, June 10th, 2019, and that would be for Parker Days. And then for Trick or Treat on Main Street, that would be from 5 p.m. on Wednesday, October 30, through midnight on Saturday, November 1st. And again, that's Trick or Treat on Main Street. And then finally, for the Christmas Carriage Parade, it's 5 p.m. on Friday, December 13th, through midnight on Sunday, December 15th.
Thank you.
And Jim, that's all, there's been no variance from what's in the packet on these, correct?
That is correct. And again, this is an annual resolution that's considered by council for these three events.
Yeah, I just thought that the public ought to have a better understanding what's going on here. Same thing with Resolution J. We got that discussion.
Okay.
You're going to vote on that.
So
now, or
Jim?
can we vote on both together.
Well, let's go ahead and Jim, why don't you go ahead and explain, or have someone else explain J, and then we can do the two items.
I think Tom Williams will take that issue.
So this was the item, Councilmember Pogue, that Dave Aden went over during our study session, and this is pertaining to a bill that the State Senate passed last year related to underground utilities and markings. And what this bill was focused on was to ensure that there were regulations and requirements that contractors and engineers followed to properly locate, delineate, and mark underground utilities so they weren't damaged. As part of that bill, and what this resolution is related to, is that each local jurisdiction was required to create a commission that would address any grievances that were aired by either contractors, property owners, or the utility providers. But the bill did allow for the local jurisdictions to defer that commission to a state commission, which has already been formed. And town staff felt it was better for us to defer to the state commission rather than creating our own, because then we would have the expense and the time necessary to create that commission. And so most municipalities throughout the state are going to defer to the commission, and we're recommending that we do the same with this resolution.
Thank you. I just felt they needed to know a little more.
And Tom, just to clarify, the only municipality that has chosen to do it on their own in the state of Colorado is Colorado Springs.
That's correct.
Okay. So council, I would need a motion on items I and J.
I'll make a motion to approve I and J.
Second.
We have a motion by Cheryl, and we have a second by Josh. In just a few seconds, council, your little box will pop back up. This is where we need the bumper music. Can hit music and let it play. Well, there it is. There's the box. You guys should be here when we have like 45 items on an agenda one night, and we have to do that wait, every single time. All right, motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Just for clarification, pretend like I'm from Legend. On consent agendas, whether it's I and J, all of the letters, in order, that's noticed already to the public that they're on the consent agenda so the public can see. But if they never get on the consent agenda, they can't get on to the public
That's correct.
format for people to come and make comments on. Am I
Specific to the ordinances, especially because the ordinances, the first reading is what brings it into the public domain. Then discussion can happen on it. Then we have the hearing on it.
So whether it's I and J
Right.
or A through Z,
Right.
that's the way that it really gets into the public format.
Right.
So people are really noticed and can come and make public comments.
Absolutely. And if anyone is ever having a hard time sleeping at night, feel free to go to parkeronline.org, and all of our agendas are online. Typically, they're posted the Thursday before our council meetings, and the full packets are available. I'm just going to advise you to look at it on your computer, not your phone, because you're going to go blind, and don't hit print, because you might have like 1,400 pages of paper, spit out of your printer on that. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to our only item on the agenda tonight. Item number 8, which is a public hearing. Item 8A, this is for Tract A, Parker Homestead Filing Number 1, First Amendment, Use by Special Review, Back 40 Gun Range. Before we get to the presentation for the kids, quick thing, just so you're going to hear some terms tonight that you might not understand. In Parker, stuff is done. We do what's called zoning, okay? So when you look outside your window when you're driving around and you see an empty piece of land, there is no land in Parker that is not owned by somebody or zoned for something. The zoning is what is established that tells the owner of that land what can happen on that land. So for instance, if a piece of land is zoned for residential, but the private owner wants to build a business on it, he or she's not allowed to. The zoning doesn't permit that. They would have to have the land rezoned or vice versa. So there's a thing that's called use by right. And in zoning, it'll say specifically what is a use by right. If there's a use by right on a piece of land, and that landowner wants to do what that use by right says, it doesn't even come before council. That's a use by right. That's their legal right to do it. So if they have a piece of land and it says, and the use by right will say what type of business. It won't say what the name of the business is. For instance, if it says you can have a restaurant there, our zoning doesn't say you can have an In-N-Out burger there. We don't have In-N-Out burger zoning. We have, we have zoning that would say you could have a restaurant by use by right, so they could build a restaurant there. They still have to follow the rules for how the building looks and so on and so forth. The next step is what's called a use by special review, which is what we have in front of us tonight. Certain zoning establishes that certain uses are permitted but need a higher level of scrutiny before they can be done. The one that we usually get for use by special reviews are veterinarians. They want to make sure that if the veterinarian has dogs and cats on premise, that they're not too loud, those kinds of things. So there are 9 criteria that the applicant has to come in and demonstrate that they can meet to be able to satisfy the use by special review. If those 9 criteria are satisfied, then it is treated as a use by right. Now, the other one is a non-permitted use. And the easiest example for that, kids, is marijuana. Retail sales of marijuana are not allowed anywhere in Parker. There's no zoning in Parker that allows for retail sale of marijuana. So if a property owner wants to come in and have a business where they sell marijuana on their land, there's no zoning that allows that. It's a non-permitted use. So it wouldn't even get to us. Staff would simply say you can't do that. So those are kind of the 3 buckets that those fall into. So tonight is a use by special review for Back 40 Gun Range. Paul, with a nice beard, who is also going to be shaving his head at Shave the Mayor this year, and his beard.
Just the beard.
Just the beard. You're not shaving your head?
Nobody wants to see that.
Oh, come on, dude. You already know that I look like Sloth from the Goonies when I shave my head, so you can do it. All right, so Paul, you're going to lead us through the presentation tonight.
Yes, sir, that's correct. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thanks for that introduction. You will see one of my slides is no longer relevant.
Speedy justice.
That's right. So as referenced, the public hearing this evening is project number Z18-004. The applicant is commonly referred to as the Back 40, and their request is for use by special review. Please note that the applicant has provided the required notice affidavit saying that the hearing has been legally noticed. Subject property for this evening is generally located at the intersection of Double Angel Road and Chambers Road. To the north of Chambers Road is a combination of residential, open space, drainage ponds. To the kind of northwest of the site is again open space and drainage with single-family homes. To the south again is drainage facilities, single-family homes, multi-purpose baseball, softball fields. On the east side of Double Angel is the Echo Park Stadium, and then further across Chambers is a church and some undeveloped property. The subject site is roughly, I believe it's 17 acres. The subject property was annexed by the town in 2010 and has been zoned for commercial uses since that time. The applicant has submitted this use by special review in order to operate an indoor archery and gun range with ancillary retail sales on the subject property as required by the Parker Homestead Plan development. So this is the slide we'll run through relatively quickly. The request this evening again is a use by special review. That is one of 3 categories that uses can fall into. This is a discretionary action based on the 9 criteria that are found in the town's land development ordinance. Those criteria, while detailed in your staff report, will be summarized later in the presentation this evening. The individual site improvements are not evaluated at the time of use by special review evaluation, so the site plan and associated construction documents have not been submitted and not been drawn yet. If approved, those improvements would be reviewed administratively through the Community Development Department, our associated referral partners, and the construction plans would be evaluated by the town's building division. For these types of uses, conditions of approval are common. In terms of the master plan, the subject property is located within a neighborhood center. Those neighborhood centers are intended to serve the surrounding commercial neighborhoods needs. So it's intended to provide services for the adjacent residential. Common uses found in those in the neighborhood center designation is retail, personal, business services, things of that nature, office, recreation, restaurants, again, retail, commercial in nature. This is an image of the Parker Homestead Plan development. The subject property is located in Planning Area 1, which is designated for mixed-use neighborhood. That means it allows for both residential and commercial uses. In the process of this application, there were 3 kind of major issues that seem to be pretty consistent. Staff will run through those 3 items here in these next 3 slides. The first kind of big item was related to noise. The applicant has done a preliminary noise study that identified existing noise levels in the area. noise levels that are generally acceptable in a traditional suburban neighborhood, and then strategies and construction methods in order to mitigate those noise to a less than significant or have no impact from this facility on the surrounding uses. The image on the right is a generally accepted kind of scale, if you will, of what different sounds and noises create as it relates to decibels. A typical traditional suburban neighborhood is right around 50 decibels. Staff is recommending a condition of approval that the applicant not exceed 45 decibels, measured 25 feet from the shared property line with the drainage pond to the west. The second item is air quality. As part of the application, the applicant did submit some detailed information from Carey's small arm range ventilation system. This is the type of HVAC system that would be used on the building itself. Having clean air within the structure as well as anything emitted is certainly important and critical. The applicant does intend to use a dual filter system that would facilitate lead emissions at a level below the EPA standard. Council will note that in the packet as well, there are recommended conditions in order to ensure compliance. The third item is related to any associated increased criminal activity. During the review of the application, the police department did not identify the potential for increased criminal activity that would be attributable to the proposal more than other traditional commercial uses. Additionally, this particular site would include site-specific safety measures that are bulleted on the screen in front of you. That is a list that may happen. There may be more that come through as the applicant goes through detailed site development. Additionally, staff is recommending a condition of approval that as those future detailed applications would be drafted, the applicant would be required to work with the town's police department in order to ensure additional safety measures. As referenced earlier in the presentation, there are 9 approval criteria associated with a use by special review. The detailed analysis of the application's ability to meet subject to conditions related to these approval criteria are provided in detail in your staff report. But briefly in summary, the character of the area is a mix of uses, including sporting related uses. The use is consistent with the neighborhood center designation and 6 goals identified in the town's master plan. The site is relatively flat, is not encumbered by a floodplain, and is large enough to accommodate multiple commercial buildings. While the site plan has not been submitted, the applicant has indicated an ability to meet the development requirements. There will be no effect to capital improvement programs. There will not be required community facilities or services greater than that which are available. The applicant's traffic analysis shows consistency with the assumptions of the master traffic analysis that was done with the original zoning and platting entitlements. Parker Water and Sanitation District has not identified any concerns related to water service, and as detailed previously, the applicant has addressed how the development can mitigate air and noise impacts. The applicant has indicated an ability to meet the landscape requirements, and this site is currently zoned and will be developed with commercial uses as detailed. There's no indication that the request would generate criminal activity more than a traditional commercial use. As part of the recommendation, there are 9 associated conditions of approval. Those conditions of approval would be in perpetuity for the life of the operator. Those 9 conditions generally fall into 3 families or categories, if you will. The first category would be noise and related to future detailed analysis and review by industry experts to ensure compliance. Air quality, ensure those conditions are recommended in order to ensure compliance with OSHA and EPA requirements. And then the third kind of family is related to land use and ensuring a safe and compatible operation. In terms of referral agency responses, all referral agencies have responded with either advisory comments or no comments related to this request. And then on March 14th of this year, the Planning Commission voted 5-1 that Town Council approve, subject to conditions, the requested use by special review for an indoor archery and gun range on the property. During that planning commission hearing, there was public testimony, as there is with every planning commission hearing. During that hearing, there were folks that spoke both in favor and in opposition to the application. 23 were in favor of the application and 9 were in opposition. That would conclude staff's presentation. However, staff is certainly available for questions you may have for staff. The applicant also has a brief presentation and is available for technical questions that council may have.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Before we have the applicant come up, council, do you have any questions for Paul?
I have one.
Okay, Cheryl?
Paul, I did not see anything in their application that addressed the screening versus, from commercial standards 3.1.f.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, I didn't see anything in the application that addressed our commercial standards for 3.1.f.
Is that the buffering requirement?
Yes.
Okay. Again, the detailed site development plan hasn't been submitted yet, so there's not that level of detail. However, there is a condition of approval associated that the applicant would need to exceed the buffer requirement adjacent to that detention pond, and certainly as part of the review of the site development plan, staff would review that application to ensure compliance with that section.
Okay, and then I have one more regarding noise. So in looking at the wave study, and I realize they're experts in the field, however, they were taking noise readings on a vacant site, not within the facility. They don't have the proposed standards. They're saying that'll all be developed later. So how are we supposed to know what we're voting on for noise when they can't propose any standards?
So the technical and the methodology and all that, staff would defer to the engineer that performed that analysis.
So we have nothing at this point in time to rely on.
Presently, the town does not have standards related to noise.
Right, but the state does. And the state health, or the county, Tri-County Health, asked us to refer to some sites by NIOSH, which addresses lead and, and chemical contamination and air quality. And I didn't see any assurance in this that we would be meeting those.
Again, the noise levels per the condition of approval would be below the level that is generally accepted at a suburban development level.
So you're saying that we're going to hold them to those standards no matter what they build?
Well, it would, assuming that the use by special review is approved, subject to the conditions as proposed, there would be a condition that would require that sound from the facility would not exceed the 45 decibels when measured 25 feet from that shared property line with the drainage pond.
Okay. Yeah, I see that, but the issue is that without having those done in a facility or no other peer-reviewed studies brought in to substantiate the type of construction that they're doing, it leaves me in a quandary.
Sure, and so again, one of the conditions of approval is that should this use by special review be approved, the applicant and the town would enter into a contract essentially for the town to hire a third party to review this future noise study for compliance with the associated conditions.
Okay. Debbie?
And if those conditions were not met, then it'd be, as for lack of better terminology, a cease and desist until they could be met. They can't just do it without being in compliance with what they agreed to do.
That's correct.
Okay. John, did you have a question?
No, I'm just taking this in. Thank you.
Jeff?
So Paul, can
You gotta hit the button.
you pull up your map real fast? I'm just in reading through all the emails we received on the topic. I'm just trying to get my head around two pieces. It's either a proposed elementary school or an elementary school that's in existence.
I believe you were referring to the Gold Rush Elementary.
Yeah,
the location for that's not going to be on these aerials because it's further to the southeast.
Yeah, it's not in the. It's not on. I mean, it's further away than what we have there.
So it's on the south side of Echo Park?
No, it's south side of Echo Park is further.
It's
down.
further east than that.
Okay. So we don't have a elementary school planned in that area for near Heirloom or anything.
No, sir.
And then is there a retirement facility planned?
So at the intersection of Terra Lane and Newland Gulch. There's currently a assisted living facility under construction.
Okay, near the LDS church.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, right on that.
Right there. Okay.
Okay, other questions?
I do.
Okay.
According to the NIOSH study, they're talking about the increase in lead levels that leave the building. And the problem is that the studies are showing that there's significant lead levels retained on the people as they leave and as they, are working there. And they're saying that an increase to 5 micrograms per deciliter can be harmful. So I don't know how this gets addressed. These are uses that develop after the building is built, and I don't know how we look at that for safety of the community.
Sure, as part of the analysis of the site plan application, should this be approved, there will be an analysis on that information. However, at this stage, at the use by permit stage, and the applicant does have some information related to this as part of their presentation, and so they may be able to provide some additional answers, but there are reviews and standards for how these HVAC systems get designed and constructed.
Okay.
Just hasn't been done at this stage because it hasn't reached that level of detail.
Well, I just found it insufficient with no cited peer review studies or anything to support the claims that were being presented.
Okay. Other questions, or before we have the applicant come up?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Would her concerns be addressed at site plan when we proceeded further
As part of
on
the
HVAC
as part of
scenario?
the detailed review, the HVAC system that's been represented in your packet this evening and recommended as conditions of approval for those EPA and OSHA standards, yes, those would be reviewed.
Thank you.
However, NIOSH is suggesting additional standards for safety.
Okay.
So I would suggest that you include NIOSH. Although that's part of OSHA, it's a separate research facility.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and bring the applicant up for their presentation. And representing the applicant is the applicant?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Ryan Buswell.
All right. Ryan, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Buswell. I live at 10032 East Meadow Run in Parker, Colorado. Mr. Mayor and Council, I appreciate you taking the time tonight to hear my proposed project. The facility, here's a illustrative sketch of the facility that we're proposing, and again, could be adjusted further down the line. It is referred to as Back 40. Sorry, I grew up on a farm in Iowa, 130-year family farm, approximately, that we used to go to the back of the farm and shoot hedge balls all the time. So in order for everybody to have a Back 40, I decided to name it Back 40. Again, in order for me to build this is not my expertise. I've never built anything. I've never bought commercial property. In order to do this, I have engaged with a number of consultants to help me do this. Throughout my 30 years of management and career path, I've always built teams, and those teams surround me in areas where I'm weak. So in August of 2016, I started to look at this concept. In January of 2016, I went under contract with Stewart, who owns Range Development Services. He builds these around the countries, around the U.S., and can walk me through the process of all the building, construction, all those details that I'm unaware of. FFL Consultants has been brought in as well to help me handle the security side of the business and the regulatory sides of the business. And they can speak to their business further on in the presentation. Wave Engineering has also been brought in to help deal with the sound concerns raised by the public all the way back from our open house that we held in February of last year. In order to kind of show the quality and the caliber of Stewart's ranges, we've brought this slide together to show some of the other ranges that he's done throughout the country. This facility will be used not only as a place to shop and to train, but also to use as an entertainment facility. It can host gatherings and events that you may want to have there. They'll have classrooms for training, so on and so forth. This just kind of shows the retail area of the firearms inside the facility. We're going to have firearms, ammo, all retail sales of accessories and a gunsmith, as well as the training that needs to go along with purchasing this item. We also have archery. My 11-year-old daughter is very avid that I have archery and wants to know why she can't go there right now after school and shoot her bow. So anyways, hopefully we can work through that. Again, we're going to have accessories for archery, bows, classes, and a bow tech to work on bows that are brought in. This just shows an indoor archery range and simulated what it's going to look like. Over to the left, we've listed a lot of the associations that use bows in order to train youth and adults as well. Again, this is with indoor fire range. A point I want to bring up here is USA Shooting Sports is an Olympic event, and from their quote, "This is a sport that you don't have to be the biggest, the baddest, the best to participate in. It does not require that. It does require patience, determination, organizational skills, mental and physical control, safety awareness, goal setting, problem solving, and good citizenship and sportsmanship." Kind of leading into the industry of the next couple of slides, we just kind of wanted to point out how many people participate in shooting sports. It's more than twice of what golf is, basketball, baseball, football, and soccer. In the past 10 years, concealed carry permits have gone up over 13 million holders. With that, you need training, you need education. Without those, you're not utilizing the skills in order to have that concealed carry permit. Want to bring up, in the shooting sports industry, $11.9 billion was spent on equipment, fees, and instruction in 2016. There's another $4 billion spent on travel to participate in the sport. We've also seen an 81% increase in female participation in target shooting since 2001. It's up close to 5.4 million female shooters now. Again, this is a training and education facility who also sells firearms and bows. Up here is a list of just a handful of classes. After the course of a year and a half up to 2 years, this will almost double in size. For the range check-in procedures, we just kind of want to show a little bit of how this process is going to work. The video, if you flip to the next one, please. They come in, they'll do an online waiver, then they'll watch a safety instruction video, and then they go to the next station where they're going to meet up with individuals who will assign their lane, make sure all the documentation is in order, and then they'll walk out onto the range and be greeted by a range officer who's out there on the lanes at all times. This is just kind of an example of a 25-yard bay, what the insides of a modern shooting range look like. We'll also have 100-yard lanes as well for folks who wanted to sight rifles and so on. We're going to be using a rubber trap, due for a number of reasons. One is it's quieter, and to me it's more functional than a steel trap would be. In this picture, I kind of want to bring up the two orange arrows behind the individual's heads is the air intake system. As we move to the next slide, that orange half moon shape up in the upper left-hand corner of the slide is where in the previous slide we just showed those arrows pointing to. Paul, if you could hit the next button. So as the air comes in, you'll notice that the arrows start to move. And again, sorry, it's only going to do this once. But the air moves past the red box, which is the stalls where the individuals stand. The smoke, residue, and everything else generated from this can clear the lane in 90 seconds. So that air is continuously moving past the individuals using the facility out into the open area of the range and then being run through the HEPA filters and systems before it comes back out again. Oh, and that's approximately 75 CFM. These are the air handling units that are going to go up on top of the roof that handle all of that with this two-stage filtration system. This is a computerized picture of the way the system operates and what I will have available to me as well as my managers 24/7. This is an automated system that will produce warnings, error messages, and if something goes awry with the system, it shuts down the HVAC system automatically, and it cannot be restarted until it is fixed properly. The people who have designed this Carrie's HVAC system will also monitor it and can dispatch technicians or troubleshoot via the internet and tell us what's wrong with it and how to fix it and how to move forward so that we could get the facility back up and running. But again, it's all electronic, it's all done by sensors, and it's all maintained that way. Kind of want to show a picture of a range that was under construction. The concrete portion to the right-hand side of the slide is where the range is. This is a concrete bunker designed that way to make it safe and secure. Just want to wrap up the presentation. This is a sport that's currently used by approximately 33% of households in America. The people already doing this are here in Parker, living in Parker, and currently going to other municipalities to do their business. The Chamber of Commerce put out a flyer last fall as their local mantra, think local, buy local, choose Parker. This is just an industry I'd like to bring to Parker that's unique and can meet Parker's needs. Any questions at this time?
Ryan, thank you very much for your presentation. Council, do you have any questions for Ryan?
Of course.
Okay.
So with that then, from my readings today from CDC and NIOSH, most of the HEPA filters will not pick up the nitrous oxides. And with the studies that you presented from Carrie, they are talking about small arms and with their lead levels there. Are you allowing large caliber in there as well? Are you going to allow or restrict the types of casings that are used?
The caliber will be restricted due to the rubber traps cannot handle it. So that's automatic.
You're going to stay with the small caliber?
Yes. 50 caliber is not an option for those ranges.
Okay. And then I find it rather disturbing in a recent report by NIOSH that they talk about reports that employers, workers, and the general public may have an increased likelihood of exposure to lead through inhalation, skin contamination, ingestion, and therefore increased risks associated with potential toxic effects from lead. And they're also talking about people having it on them as they leave and take it home.
That goes back to the HVAC slide that I showed, where the air is constantly moving past the individual in the lane and out onto the lane before it comes back into the facility. So it will literally clear me in 90 seconds. It'll travel the 25 yards and go through the HEPA filtration system. So for it to come backwards onto me, just due to, I guess, physics and gravity, it's not possible. It's going to continue to move past and out of the way of the people using the range.
So are you also going to be doing some kind of standard to require the maintenance? Because where a lot of this fails is the maintenance of these systems.
The system will not run if it's not maintained. And so my last career, I spent 12 years there. I first took over. I ended up as a VP of a janitorial company. When I first took over, I had a supervisor come to me and say, I need a new vacuum. I was like, okay. And she's like, that's it? And I was like, yeah. She goes, but it's $400. I was like, what happens if you don't vacuum tonight? She goes, well, the customer is going to complain. I was like, you're right. And then I got to come down, talk through the customer, and I'm not buying you a new vacuum. Why do I want to go through all that? Just spend the $400, get a new vacuum, do your job the right way, and make everybody happy, and we'll get more business that way. I carry that philosophy over into this business.
Well, thank you. I've come across, in my research, I've come across these questions. I am a gun owner. I use ranges, indoor and outdoor. But when I start reading all this information, and some of the questions that came from Dr. Wilson, it's like, okay, bingo, I need to ask these questions.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks, Cheryl. Other questions, council? John?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question on the 25-yard bay versus the 100-yard bay and noise. What's the Can you articulate, or maybe one of your consultants can articulate, what is the difference in noise? I mean, to me, I'm trying to sort of distill that and then translate that outside. So if 25 yards versus 100 yards, how big of a difference in terms of decibels is that, and is material going to the outside?
I'm going to have to defer to Jeff for that one. He's with Wave Engineering.
Oh, yeah. You want this Jeff to answer it, or that? No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. This Jeff, please.
Good. Name and address for the record, please.
Jeff Kolkowski, Wave Engineering, 1100 West Littleton Boulevard, Littleton, Colorado.
Okay.
The rifles that are typically used in the 100-yard range do tend to be louder than the smaller handguns in the 25-yard range. Just as a ballpark number, probably 10 to 12 decibels louder on the handguns. They also tend to have more of a boom to them, more low frequency sound. Generally, they are what kind of drives our design. So when we're designing the building, and we're consulting with the architects and the engineers on designing the building, usually we're designing for those louder guns when we're trying to predict what the sound level will be outside. So that it may be, so that's what's driving our design, and the handguns in the shorter range will tend to be quieter, but we're designing for the louder guns.
And taking that, again, translating that noise and then taking it outside, I assume you're designing to muffle or to mitigate as much as possible. I know there's a condition for 45 decibels. I mean, typically, what would that decibel sound like outside? I don't know. I've been to a few ranges. I've stood outside when they were active, and I didn't hear a thing. So, to me, I'm trying to sort of understand that experience and translate it into this situation.
Asking about if it were like a concert.
No, I'll just.
And so the 45 decibels was at 25 feet from the common property line of the range property and the drainage, I believe. So one of the reasons we measured the ambient noise levels that are now in the vacant space was to get an idea of how loud it is now. On average during the day, we found that in that area closest to the range, the average, I believe, off the top of my head, was around 52 decibels. So that's an average. So at times during lulls in traffic during the day, it's certainly quieter than that, and there's times when it's louder than that. Just to give you an idea, as a ballpark, again, a rule of thumb, if you want something to be completely inaudible, you want it to be, say 8 to 10 decibels quieter than what's around it. So if you're hearing something it's 45 decibels and the ambient's 50, 52, there's a chance you would hear that, but it would be faint and muffled. And if you were to hear it at that property line at 45, it wouldn't sound like a crack, a pop, like it would inside the range. It would sound more like I think I heard someone say a car door closing, kind of a thump kind of sound. If you would hear something, that's what it would sound like.
Okay, so with 45 being the upper end, I mean, typically speaking, you wouldn't be at 44 and 45 all the time. You would want a buffer. So, I mean, typically speaking, how much would that decibel level be at any given time?
Yeah, so we're going to be designing, we're certainly going to give ourselves a safety margin. So there's too much risk to Ryan to design to try and hit 45. We're going to be designing to be less than that for the loudest firearms. So given that most firearms are going to be a bit less than that, it gives us even more safety margin. So as far as what the sound level would typically be, if our goal is no higher than 45, I would say most of the time it's probably not going to be louder than 40. decibel.
Okay, John, other questions?
And if it's 25, if it's 45 maximum at 25 feet, I forget, Paul, maybe you can help out. How much is it until the property line of the other houses? And I guess the question is that how much dissipation do you have in the decibel limits once it gets to the property line?
So staff can answer the first part of that. From the shared property line with the drainage pond to the essentially fence line of the residential units is roughly 200 feet.
Okay.
So the second part of the question is how fast does the decibel change by distance?
Yeah, just, again, a rule of thumb is every time you double the distance, the sound level drops by about 6 decibels. So if we were at that 25 feet from the property line is actually about 50 feet from where the building is expected to be. So if you went to 100 feet, we'd expect it to be about 6 decibels below that. You went to 200 feet, it would be another 6 decibels. So I think that's 12 decibels below that if you were right at 45.
Thank you.
Okay, Debbie, did you have a question? No? Renee? Jeff?
So I just have a couple questions. It might be for any of you. So can you talk a little bit about the security for the retail piece of it? So I pulled off the. Oh.
Yet another consultant. I apologize.
That's good.
If his name is Jeff also, then we need
you know what? We might be able to change it briefly. We need to talk about the spacing in the chairs, though. Some of us have similar
Hey,
issues with
you saw me try to get behind Debbie's chair. This building wasn't made for men of our robust stature.
John Clark, FFL Consultants, Highlands Ranch, Colorado. How are you this evening? Thank you for having me. What are your questions, sir?
So what are your procedures for safety for the retail? So I've kind of gone through this and understand that it's you have to come in with an unarmed weapon in a range bag, locked,
sure,
something like that. So transporting in and out. But what is the security for the internal for prevention against smash and grab? Prevention against?
Sure. So give you a little bit background on FFL Consultants. We're a small consultancy firm. We're one of a handful of consultancy firms that actually services the entire firearms industry through the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is the trade association for the industry. We've actually, we're two of the architects of a national program, a joint initiative with the Department of Justice and the ATF called Operation Secure Store. We've built an entire program that's being promoted nationwide to better protect FFLs, both gun retailers, firearms retailers, as well as gun ranges. We participate in a number of different programs with them, joint initiatives with the DOJ. There are a number of different solutions that can be employed and deployed in order to protect a firearms retailer, depending, and it really is, I have to be kind of loose with this because we haven't seen the finalized plans, but our recommendations will be to protect any openings, penetrations to the building, things like that. So once we see the building plans, we'll be able to better protect those. There are a number of solutions that can be employed and deployed in order to protect the building, from bollards to window film. Small FFLs, we have them line their walls with large gun safes if they sell gun safes. So there are a number of solutions that we can deploy to protect that building, whether it's from burglary or robbery or whatever the case may be.
Okay. And then for the applicant, did you look at other sites around Parker before choosing this one?
Being new to this, yes. Originally looked at, you get a big long list saying you can look at all of these, great. And then we started to get into the PD for the high school folks, what it's zoned for. And then you get into the retail aspects of this is what you need for a retail site. You need it on a major thoroughfare. You need one turn off that major thoroughfare. And then you get into the willingness of a property owner to work with you to subdivide to get such a funky shape like I need for the building. And that left us with one site, and that was the site that we're looking at today. They were the only ones that would work with us on how to divide up the property.
Great, thank you.
Other questions, Jeff?
I'm good.
Josh?
I have questions for the sound engineer.
Oh, now he's going to come back up. His name's Jeff, in case you were wondering.
Hi, Jeff. So, Jeff, we don't get to attend the Planning Commission meetings for obvious reasons. We like to keep a quasi-judicial feeling or truth up here and not sway the planning commissioners anyway. But it was mentioned many times, according to testimony, that 40 decibels A, or adjusted for hearing, was used, yet your document states 45 decibels flat. Or are they comparable? Is dBA comparable, 40 dBA comparable to 40 dB, 45 dB? There's a difference in the scale, correct?
There is a difference, and I'm not sure what you're referencing as far as the 40 dB. 40 dB was mentioned numerous times.
dBA, I believe from testimony, it was 40 dBA was repeatedly mentioned. 45 dB is your guideline.
No, the guideline is 45 dBA.
dBA.
And
okay.
and all of them are report, whether discussing ambient levels or future firearm levels, is referring to dBA.
Okay. So 45 dBA, and the ambient levels were between 52 and 56 dBA. If an impulse of sound at 45 dBA happens during ambient levels at 56 dBA, can you hear that impulse?
If it were 45 dBA impulse and the ambient were 56?
Yes, sir.
It's unlikely you would hear that.
Okay, so again, we're talking about the lower frequencies, lower hertz, the bass sound.
We're talking in, whenever we talk about a single number, we are somewhat talking in generalizations. So when we do a full analysis, we look at the full frequency spectrum. So we wouldn't just look at the 56 dBA for the ambient. We say, oh, well, what was it at low frequency? What was it at high frequency? And the same with our prediction of the gunshots. What are they at low frequency and high frequency? And we kind of make that comparison on the entire range. So I don't know that I can answer your question without.
I think my question I'm going towards is the larger guns, citing the rifles and whatnot. My concern is the low frequencies. The cracks can be stopped, whether it's foam or sheetrock or even the concrete wall itself. But the booms are what you're going to hear or feel. So with the interior insulation, whether eggshell or whatever you want to call it, you're going to stop the waves so much. But the boom that we're going to get is the masonry wall brick. Is it raised concrete as was shown in the diagrams? Is it cinder block with hollow for a chance to even more attenuate or less attenuation? What are we looking at as far as stopping the low booms, the low frequencies?
Well, you're right. Those are the hardest to stop. And if you were to hear something outside, it would almost certainly be a low thud or thump or boom type sound. I don't know exactly what the construction will be because we haven't designed the building yet, but it almost certainly will involve those kind of elements. Grout-filled concrete block, solid concrete walls, possibly concrete or block with some airspace in it, things like that.
Okay.
You cannot do it with lightweight construction with steel studs and metal panels on the outside or something like that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I appreciate that. So 45 decibels at a lower frequency, 45 decibels at 20 hertz. Is that more noticeable than 45 decibels at 2 kilohertz? Or what? Can you feel that? Is it the same? If we're taking ambient noise and the ambient average is a certain frequency, and you have a lower frequency for the boom, is it more noticeable? Are you going to be able to hear that lower frequency even though the ambient noise is constant?
No, if I understand your question correctly, no. First, 45 decibels at low frequencies is less noticeable to people than 45 decibels at higher frequencies.
Thank you.
The ear is not as sensitive to the lower frequencies. So if you have the same decibel level at those lower, mid, or high frequencies, you don't notice as much as high. But if the low frequency sound levels are higher, then you might notice it. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Jeff, you had a question?
I did not.
Okay. Cheryl, did you have anything?
One more. If you're allowing like ARs in your 100-foot lane, those are significantly higher in decibel range, even though they may be shooting at a lower level, but they're extremely high compared to a 22 or a 45 or 380 or whatever people are working with, or a 9mm. So explain the differences on how you're going to adjust for that.
Well, I think the difference is we will be designing for the building to contain that louder noise, so those quieter firearms will just be that much less noticeable.
So you're doing the entire structure to deal with the louder, or
That's
the AR
correct.
type rifles?
That the entire 100-yard range will certainly be designed to that. It's possible that the 25-yard range might be slightly different construction because it's not as loud, but you're designing for the worst case, the loudest firearm that will be allowed in the range.
Are you also dealing with that kind of sound emission from the roof as well as ground sound emission?
Yes, absolutely.
Other questions?
I have one more.
Okay.
The school district has an issue with harmony, compatible with the character of the surrounding neighborhood and area. You know, they also mentioned not wanting significant air, water, or noise pollution, and they want to make sure that it's not detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the inhabitants of the town. Some of that can be transmitted through people just being there and leaving, but how do you address the harmony and compatibility issue?
Again, it's a recreational and sports area. This is a recreational and sports facility. The SIC code is recreational and sports. So as the area is grouped towards that, with the parks coming on with Reuter Hess and all the outdoor activities taking place there, this just fits in with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Nope. All right, thank you very much. All right, so at this point, it's where we come to public comment. So let's go over some kind of quick rules for this because there's a lot of people in the room. So even though he put up the slide that showed that shooting sports are like the king daddy, I'm a baseball fan, okay? Love baseball. So I'm gonna use some baseball analogies here. This wall over here is our on-deck circle. Okay, so the way we're going to do it so that we have a quick and orderly ability for everyone to give their public comment is I'm going to start with this section. We're going to start with the front row and we're going to move their way back. And the way it's going to work is if you want to give public testimony, you're going to move over to this wall. Okay, you're going to line up in this wall and then I'm going to invite you up one at a time. The on-deck circle is at the front of this wall, right? So when the person's done over here, we'll invite the next one up and we'll keep that rotation. That will go all the way to against the wall. So you guys sitting in the back, if you want to do testimony as well, that includes you. When this section completes, so this front row in the center right, my center right, your center left, keep an eye on that. When the line starts getting low, front row here, kind of do the same thing, move all the way back, then this section, okay? So that's how the logistics of it's going to work. And if you guys remember what I said earlier, there's a clock above me that says 3 minutes. I got one on the wall. You come up, state your name and address for the record. You're going to start your testimony. When that hits 0, I'm going to say thank you very much, and I'm going to invite the next person up. Now here is what will happen. Every single one of you has the God-given right to state your opinion tonight, and you absolutely should do that. You will hear people who agree with you. You will hear people who don't agree with you. You're going to hear people that you agree with and people you don't agree with. It is their God-given right to have their opinion and share that tonight. So that's what you will do. What you won't do is there won't be any booing, there won't be any hissing, there won't be any cheers or jeers or banging around or any of that kind of stuff. If you can't handle that, I'm going to go ahead and invite you to watch from out there, and I will buy you a cup of coffee afterwards, and you can yell at me. But we want to keep it orderly and civil for everyone who's here so that everyone has the opportunity to state their opinion in a respectful way. Okay? Sound good? So it looks like we're already getting started up, so you can go ahead and move forward, and everyone who wants to testify in this section, starting with the front row, and we'll be gentlemen and let ladies go first, all that kind of jazz, start piling in back behind here. And then I won't remind again, so you guys in the front row start watching, and when it gets time, you just start going up and doing it, okay? All right, young man, let's go ahead and start public comment at 8:36 p.m. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening again, council members. Thank you. I'm Isaac McCorkle. I live in Stonegate, 10158 Stone Ridge Terrace, Parker, Colorado, 80134. I am a retired Marine officer. I have 3 kids in the Douglas County school systems. I am a gun owner, and I'm a firearms enthusiast. I was a machine gunner, and I was a Marine Corps special operator. So I have a close association to firearms, and I understand what they can do. I am a concerned citizen because when I look at that map right there, and being a leader of Marines, I understand that negligent discharges happen in certain places. And the places that they happen is where firearms and ammunition come together. And we talked a whole lot about what was going on inside that range. We didn't talk much about what was going on outside that range. Now, when firearms and ammunition are brought into a certain location, the statistical probability of accidents increase. And the proximity of those neighborhoods, the proximity of Gold Rush Elementary School, is all within range of the firearms that will be used at that school. Now, I am not against the installation of a gun range. I am against the installation of a gun range in a location that causes our citizens significant risk. Now, I believe that leadership is important in situations like this. And whether or not you agree with one side or the other, that as a leader, you give an honest assessment. And you take your experiences and you apply them to the certain situation that is in front of you. And you decide whether or not it's in the best interests of your citizens, or the people that live in those neighborhoods, to install that gun range and to expose them to that risk. And it is your responsibility as a council member that when you cast a vote to say yes or no, and that gun range should be installed or not installed, that you consider that, because in the horrible case and situation that there were a negligent discharge there and somebody was coming home to work right off Hess Road to see their kids in their front yard playing, I don't want that citizen to drive home and see their kids shot in the front yard by a negligent discharge, because I've seen people shot both by accident and on purpose. And it's not something that I want any of the citizens in those neighborhoods to experience. I'm not against the installation of a gun range. I'm against causing undue risk for our citizens. Thank you very much, council members, citizens of Parker. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service. Appreciate it. Next up, sir. Name and address for the record, please. And I know I've already told you guys name and address for the record. It's a habit. I'm going to say it 400 times tonight, so just get used to hearing that. Name and address, please.
Eric Freund, 19753 New Market Court, Parker, Colorado, 80134. I am for this facility very strongly. I'm sure there will be people talking both for and against it this evening. I wish to address some very specific items. It had not been my intent tonight to reveal this, but I am an employee of a similar range. And I would like to address specific questions that Ms. Pogue has had, and Mr. Rivera, and Mr. Dyack. First of all, I've been a range officer for 3.5 years. I'm not currently in that position. I was on that range a lot. I underwent blood testing every year for lead, and I've never exceeded even my initial ground basis. So the air system they're talking about is very similar to what we currently use. It is very reliable. Does it fail once in a while? Very seldom. If it does, we abandon the range and it stops activity until it's back up and running. But at times it almost feels like a breeze running past you when you're up there. So you have very little impact of that as far as lead. Noise, I would invite you to come and stand outside some of the ranges, particularly ours, and find out that you hear almost no sound at all coming from the range. My current position is actually right next to where the rounds strike. I'm in an office, and I actually probably am experiencing less than the 45 dB in my office from where I'm sitting. So I strongly encourage that you proceed with this proposal. I believe that the conditions that are required for them to meet per the planning department and the conditions that will be set will more than adequately allay the fears that you folks have expressed. I think this area is an excellent spot for it. It is a recreational area, and this just enhances more of the recreation in Parker. I want to thank you very much, and I certainly hope that you will consider this proposal.
Thank you, sir. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Howdy, everybody.
Hi.
My name is Amy. I don't need these yet. My name is Amy Long. I live at 19668 East Elk Creek Drive, Parker, Colorado 80134. That's in Stroh Ranch. So thank you, Town Council. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to read because I get a little nervous public speaking.
Don't be nervous.
So
You're good.
I'll try not to. So thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to speak. I'm here speaking for my family and myself. I am a concerned community member and a parent of Douglas County School District students who will eventually utilize the Echo Park Stadium. I ask that each of you vote no on approving the back 40 shooting range at Chambers and Double Angel. I think that some people who support this shooting range will frame opposition as coming from people who are wholly against guns, and this is untrue, at least speaking for myself. An indoor shooting range has benefits of providing a safe, contained place for people to shoot. I totally understand that. My problem with it, my issue with this, is that it's at a location near a school stadium and people's homes. Allowing a gun range so close to homes, which a shocking 200 feet, and to our youth, brings with it valid concerns over health, safety, and well-being. You know, we've discussed the noise pollution, the possible issues with lead, adverse effects on wildlife in the area, and those drainage systems, that green space, common space haven't been discussed as much. I'm concerned about those, but also bringing gun culture and the risks associated with it being in proximity to our youth. Those are just some of the concerns that I have. I understand that this building is going to have a lot of safety to it. I'm not concerned about, you know, bullets going through the wall, something like that. I know it's going to be contained and things like that, but we can't really control what happens in the parking lots. And my children will certainly be using that stadium in a few years, and the thought that there's a gun range near there is concerning to me. I have friends who live right in that little cul-de-sac. You know, they're going to look out their door and see the shooting range, and I don't think that they're here tonight. They couldn't make it, but they're very upset about the shooting range. So I'm here to ask on my friends' behalf and on my children's behalf that you vote no on this shooting range. And I would like to say that I think that it's fine in a more industrial area. An industrial park or something would be perfect. This is just not the place where there's school sports, where there's people doing practice, and where people live 200 feet away. Let's just build it somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Christina Hespel, 10506 Meadow Run in Parker 80134.
Could you say your last name one more time, dear?
Hespel, Hesbol. Good evening, council members and Mayor Wade. I'm a professor at the University of Denver and a researcher, so I bring that sort of information to you this evening as well in support of the proposal by Back 40 to develop their education and training center. Increased options for recreation appeals to many Parker residents. The proposed facility that you're asking great questions about tonight will include, as you know, an archery range, pistol and rifle bays, and large specially designed rooms for shooter training for club members and members of the law enforcement community, which is, I think, an important piece that we haven't really brought forward. Indoor ranges play an important role in educating people about the proper handling of firearms in a safe, hands-on learning environment. Archery as a sport is growing in popularity in Colorado. It's an increasingly popular choice for among young people who don't particularly enjoy participating in the traditional high school team sports. It's cited in an article as being one of the safest sports in the country, safer than soccer, golf, or baseball. Research by the National Sporting Goods Association indicates that the number of women who target shoot has increased by 50% in the last 10 years. Female hunters have increased 42% according to that same study. And the 4-H shooting sports program is the most popular 4-H program in the state of Colorado, with more than 3,500 young people participating, learning the safe and responsible use of both archery equipment and firearms. The inclusive nature of recreational shooting appeals to young people, and many parents report that spending time with their family at a shooting range ensures that their children are properly educated on gun safety. The proposed site is buffered on all sides from residential use, in addition to extensive sound abatement to accommodate users of the facility as well as neighbors. It would provide a new option in the Ruder-Hess Reservoir area, an increasingly popular area for outdoor sports enthusiasts. This is aligned with the Town of Parker's careful planning that has resulted in extensive athletic options for the residents of Parker, including the network of trail facilities and, as you alluded to earlier, world-class recreation facilities. Building this facility on this space will bring both tax revenue and increased employment opportunities for Parker. And as the mother of 4 sons and the grandmother of 8 grandchildren, I strongly support the approval of this facility in our community. And thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Next up, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dr. Douglas Gordon Hespel. I live at 10506 Meadow Run in Parker.
Okay, should I make any jokes about 2 doctors under the same roof? It would be worse if it was 2 attorneys under the same roof, but we won't go there. So sorry, sir, go ahead.
Lots of jokes, though. I am for this, and for a variety of reasons. I didn't grow up with guns. I did archery from age 10 through high school, but didn't encounter weapons until I was in the military and did attain my expert rating. So I have a sense of what that should look like. I'm concerned that, the first time I encountered guns in a community was when I lived in Oklahoma, first in the military and then went to school, and every friend of mine who had a pickup truck had a rifle in the back window. So they were there and they were prevalent. I didn't buy a pickup or a gun at that time, or a rifle. And it dawns on me now that the greatest, in having spent a career in education, as a teacher, as a principal, as a district director, as a superintendent, I certainly am aware of the impact of safety and of guns in our schools. I taught 6 years inner city Chicago, and the stories I can tell you, those kids were not trained properly in the use of weapons. My concern as an educator and in supporting a community, I do know when I moved to Colorado, when we moved 6 years ago, I was not surprised, not taken aback, but very aware that there is a great deal of interest in guns in our community. Not just Parker, but throughout this community. And we're one of the few homes that don't have guns or weapons in our home. Not because we're opposed. Christina didn't tell you she grew up hunting in northern Illinois with her father when she was a kid. So it's something that's ingrained, it's something we support. However, the thing I think is missing, that this facility will provide, are training opportunities for parents to be with their kids, to show what gun safety is like, to let kids not be afraid of guns. You shouldn't be afraid of them, you should just respect them. And I don't know that we have opportunities or places to do that. The other interest I have is that this is going to add another dimension to Parker in the Park District. I've heard about gun ranges in the area, nothing in Parker. Why should we lose our citizens to go to other places when they can come here? And I don't know that there's been any great deal of concerns about shootings outside of gun ranges, because they're safe and there are people who understand and respect that. So I hope you will consider that this is a really important component of our community and will be beneficial for our families and also for our kids as they grow up. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you, sir. Next up. Now, if you say your name is Doctor and Hespel is the last name.
April Fools.
April Fools, yeah, exactly. Good one, good one. Name and address for the record, please.
Mark DeLang, 6838 Alpine Drive, Parker, Colorado, 80134. I'm in favor of this. I support it for many different reasons. I've had 3 children that went to Douglas County schools. 2 of my boys played soccer at the Echo Park field there, 4 years apiece. I have more concerns with guns in the school parking lot and in the schools than I do with an outdoor facility such as this. Some of the questions I heard regarding lead exposure, I feel more comfortable going to a shooting range and having the lead blow away from me than I do going out in the field and having the wind blow it right back in my face continually. I've hunted for 40 years. I've shot numerous times, and shotguns, pistols, rifles. I feel this is a safer environment and better for my health. I think the lead contaminants needs to be done at the ammunition level and not regulated so much as the facilities that they're shooting. If you think of all your law enforcement officials that are constantly training and shooting these things, they're constantly exposed to this. So if we reduce that with the ammunition, I think that's the better alternative to this. I think the third thing I want to mention is the harmony with the location there and the security concerns. I've purchased numerous rifles at Sports Authorities, Walmarts, Gander Mountains, Cabela's. All of those facilities sell rifles and ammunitions. I'm able to walk in and out of there with both those products. They're close proximity walking distance to residential areas. I see no concerns with those big chain stores that are capable of selling those. I don't see that this is a risk to have this in this neighborhood as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up. Name and address for the record, please.
I'm not a doctor, but my name is Mark Moore. I live at 8535 East Bayou Gulch Road, Parker 80134. I'm here to support this this back 40 gun range. Growing up, we were able to shoot on the back of the ranch all the time, went through hunter safety, but there were never any formal training facilities available. So I think the idea of having an indoor training facility is a great benefit to our whole our society here. The opportunities for people that want to be safe and proficient with their firearms are few and far between in this day and age. This facility can provide a safe, controlled environment for people to work on their skills and receive professional advice. I've got boys that hunt. We use our guns as a tool sometimes. Every now and then on the ranch we have to put down an animal or something. It teaches you a whole new level of respect for a firearm when you have to use it to dispatch a sick animal or something. People don't understand that if they're just recreational shooting, but hopefully with a little more training, they understand the power of what they're handling. And like the gentleman just said, firearms are available at Walmart, Cabela's, every place, but they don't come with a level of training. And I think it's a real service to our community for Ryan to be doing this. I'm also proud that it's a local business owner that's willing to invest in our community. So I would suggest that we vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, please. Name and address, please.
Lad Fisher, 10620 Anderson Avenue, Franktown, 80116. I know that I'm outside of your area, but I'm excited at the opportunity that this would come here as a father of two daughters who compete heavily in Douglas County 4-H shooting sports, having seen the program grow and not have a very warm, safe environment in the winter months where these kids can hone their skills. I selfishly would enjoy this opportunity myself. What I would like to do is to have this opportunity for these kids to be able to compete and to practice year-round to continue to hone their skills in a safe environment. I think this is a great project. It sounds like it's extremely well laid out. Everything's been thought of. I don't find this to be a safety concern, and I think that if people respect the facility and the firearms and bows and arrows, that you would not have this problem. I am in favor of the project, and I sincerely hope that you consider it as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Nate Becker, 15895 Savory Circle, Parker, Colorado, 80134. I'd like to start by, I've been to several council meetings over the 7 or so years that I've lived in Parker, and I've been on multiple sides of the aisle in terms of for or against a particular item, and I haven't always walked out of here happy with the decision. But one thing I've always walked out of here was with a respect and appreciation for the process. and the transparency in which the town conducts their business. And I'd like to point out something that Mayor, you posted and you touched on at the beginning of the meeting today, as well as on Facebook, is the use by for an applicant to apply by use by special permit. If they meet the 9 criteria, it is deemed as a right by use. The Planning Commission has widely accepted and approved this, that this applicant has met and can meet the 9 criteria. If they meet the 9 criteria, the decision is made. It is a right by use. Whether you like it, whether you support it, whether you're for guns, against guns, whether you hunt, whether you shoot, totally irrelevant. If they meet the 9 criteria, it has to be treated as right by use. And I want to remind everybody of that obligation and hope that the council will keep that in mind when they make their decision tonight. Similar to many other members and residents here, I also have little children. I live within several blocks of where this facility is going to be built. My kids will be participating in sports at Echo Park Stadium. I am 100% in support of this. I grew up in the Midwest. We were taught how to use firearms at a young age. One of the biggest concerns I have is where and how am I going to teach my 8-year-old and 6-year-old son how to safely use a firearm? How am I going to teach them how to shoot? Where can we go do that safely? This is the perfect facility for us to do that. All the fear-mongering, all the concerns we have, very candidly, a lot of it is not based on evidence. You'll hear people come up today and they'll tell you about how it's going to hurt home values and how there's studies by Realtor.com that tell you it decreases home values by X%. That's outdoor ranges. Again, everything we're going to consider is, have they met the 9 criteria? And so I want to ask you guys tonight to consider that when you make your decision of, did this applicant meet the 9 criteria? If the answer is yes, please approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please. But real quick, is that your town council jacket that you're wearing? Because it says vote on the back.
Sure does.
I was impressed by it. So name and address, please.
My name is Emily Suyat. I live at 15608 Cristallo Drive in Parker. I'm here to oppose the gun range as located near the stadium. I want to make clear that I do not oppose a gun range in Parker, and if the location would be in any other place, like the one that was proposed at near Dransfeld and 20 Mile, I wouldn't be here today. But I am because I have 2 kids, a junior at Chaparral and an 8th grader at Sierra. They're part of Generation Lockdown. We have no idea what it's like to be a student. We really don't. So I urge you to think about what it might feel like to be a kid visiting our town for an away track meet and to see someone close by removing a long gun from a trunk and having no context, not knowing that that's a shooting range, not knowing whether it's a good guy or a bad guy, not knowing whether they are unloading or loading their gun, and having that impression stick with them as they are supposed to be enjoying this beautiful day at a track meet. I know you are interested in due diligence before you vote on this matter, and so I appreciate all the questions you've asked, and I have more questions too. First, is there a precedent for a gun range that is this close to school property where teenagers gather every day? I have a schedule I'd like to submit to the record of the Echo Park Stadium schedule for spring 2019. There are events every single day. There are practices every single day for lacrosse, rugby, soccer, POMs, band practice. I couldn't find any precedent, and I look at the map and I honestly can't even believe we're discussing this. In January this year, the Plano, Texas Planning Commission rejected a gun range application 6-1 because it was a half mile from a high school and because they were concerned about parking lot safety. So please tell me that Texas doesn't have more common sense than we do. And by the way, Gold Rush is right out of that picture. It's a mile away as the crow flies from the gun range. I would also like to know, what is the town's legal exposure and what is the school district's exposure? Will Back 40 be properly insured for what might happen in the parking lot? While some kids might be repelled by guns, others will be curious or trying to impress their friends. I have a curious kid, my 17-year-old, and even the most responsible gun owners get distracted and forgetful. We all do. We forget to lock our cars, even when valuable things are in there. There is no way to control what happens in the parking lot. All it takes is one mistake, one time. I I would also like you to officially consult with the police department and see how often they go to places like this, to gun ranges. At the Planning Commission vote, a few people came up to me and let me know that their teenagers are excited for this range to open. I don't doubt that. They've had positive experiences, but a lot of people in this room have not. I'd like to point out that you, Mayor, made sure that people felt safe in this room, and I think we need to make sure our community members feel safe too, including survivors of gun violence.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next up. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Jordan Graham. I live at 10533 Holyoke Drive in Parker, Colorado, 80134. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, for hearing us tonight. I urge you to vote against this proposal. I come from a background of using rifles and shotguns and handguns and archery, and one thing I haven't heard anybody talk about tonight is at what decibel range is someone with PTSD going to be traumatized? You know, the average ambient decibel range is something about 52. That means it's going to be a lot lower than that sometimes. And you might have a veteran or somebody else who's got PTSD from all the gun violence in our country walking nearby. At what decibel range are they going to be triggered? And I've heard no discussion of that tonight, and I think our community bears a particular responsibility to people with PTSD from gun violence. I looked it up before I came here this evening. There are 20 businesses in the gun business within a 20-minute drive of this park where young people are going to be competing. It's not like we are not amply served by the gun industry in our community. And I think this is the wrong position for this business, and I urge you to vote against. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address, please.
Bill Hingston, 11809 Phoebe Street, Parker, Colorado, 80134. First of all, I'd like to say that I absolutely am in favor of a gun range here in Parker, but, and the big but is, not in the current location. We definitely need the services that the owner wants to provide for here, but again, not at that location. I did a quick Google search under maps and just looked at some of the gun ranges in the Denver metro area and what they were surrounded by. Centennial Gun Club, we're all pretty familiar with where that's located, is located in a business park. There's U.S. Foods Distribution and an airport. 5280 Armory, which is located at 4781 West 58th Avenue, has a storage facility. Industrial Chemicals Corporation, Golden Industrial Supply, and a boat and RV lot in its direct surroundings, where we're talking about. If you laid that map over that, that's what you would see instead of houses and a ball field. The Shootist, which is at 2980 South Galapago, that's down off of Santa Fe and Bellevue approximately. It's a light industrial area with a trailer park. Inglewood Parks Department Yard is there, and also Inglewood Water Treatment Facility is located in that area. Harmony is one of the things that this facility has to meet criteria-wise to be approved. And when you look at this map, this overlay, I see 3 neighborhoods and 3 ballparks. It doesn't, to me, meet that harmony aspect. I have no doubt that it will be a safe range as far as lead exposure. I'm a little concerned about noise exposure. I'm definitely concerned about the type of lighting that we may see there to help light the place at night so that we don't have to worry about crime aspect. But most importantly is when I outline these other ranges and what you see around them and what you see at this proposed site, it just does not fit. So I hope that you take that into consideration and vote no on this.
Thank you, sir. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name's Cindy Turchik, 16915 Cornerstone Lane, Parker. Same zip. Thank you for inviting us here and giving us an opportunity to have a voice. I am a mother of 3, grandmother of 3. I conceal carry, I'm a pro-gun, and I love this country because we have our Second Amendment rights, and I don't feel that we should be, that somehow guns should be considered bad, and the more education people get, and this facility will give that opportunity, the more people that choose to want to use a gun and know how to use it safely to help citizens that get into trouble, the better we all are. I have lived here for 15 years, and in the last 3 years since Denver became a sanctuary city, we have been robbed inside our house by illegal. We have had our car stolen by an illegal, but we followed him, got him out of the car with our gun, called the police, and they took him. And then we've had our son hit in a restaurant by an illegal who stole a car. So our crime statistics, as Parker being 16 miles from Denver, that is embracing illegals and all that they bring, we need to protect ourselves. And that's why I conceal carry, because I don't want to be a victim, I want to be a victor. And I don't want to be a mother that's burying my child because somebody killed them in many different ways. So I want to be armed and I want to be prepared. And I welcome and thank you so much for wanting you to bring this to our town. I think we need it. We just had a beautiful tennis court facility built. I play tennis too, and I love that place, and I'm going to love this range as much, and it's no different. And people that are, I think, fear-based, that are afraid of guns, I think people should try to educate themselves a little more. And we already have a national conversation that we're going to be having more educated people in schools with guns to protect our children, rather than having signs on the door that say no guns allowed. That's where the killers go to kill people, because there's a sign that says no guns allowed. And so I think every parent has a responsibility to take this seriously. And I hope all of you vote yes for this and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is David Hunter, 15232 Yellowthroat Street, Parker, Colorado, 80134. So I live in the neighborhood closest to the proposed site, and I'm in favor of allowing this gun range to be placed here. This will bring much needed value for safe gun handling and training that very few people have when buying or owning a gun. I found that in 2018, the University of Washington School of Public Health conducted and published a study showing that only about 3 in 5 gun owners have received any formal training. The study further focused on the rise of suicide and how gun training can help reverse these rates. Also, why we can all agree and have a very deep feelings about the plague of mass shootings in our country, and while the public and politicians struggle at best to figure out ways to prevent any further acts like these, we cannot point to gun ranges as being a cause for these crimes. However, publicly, we can make minor changes that make a difference even while controversial laws will never get passed. Having safe gun training readily available is one of those things. For the opposition, I've heard concerns from it will drop property values, I think 3.7% based on Realtor.com, hearing unwanted noise, environmental concerns with lead poisoning, drawing crime, and just feeling good about it in the neighborhood or near school events, as if this will somehow poison our children. I feel that with conditions having been documented and applied in perpetuity, these concerns have been more than adequately addressed. Lastly, I will leave you with these thoughts. If this was a simple gun shop, they would have already been pre-approved without any provisions and without any benefits of the community and proper handling. I don't believe Realtor.com was looking at gun ranges with these stringent quality measures, but even if they were, we have a drag on home values already because we already knew it was zoned commercial when we moved in. I do, however, expect a gas station and possibly other retail that does not require these approvals will diminish our values. Also, what if the gun range doesn't go in? What will go in its place? No alternative will bring more value, less traffic, less noise and air pollution, and less crime. This is why I'm in favor of the gun range being approved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Jeff Johnson, 22898 Addington Place. So I have a background in commercial construction and development. I get to see these processes quite often. And I guess I feel like we're losing some clarity here. This is not a vote on guns. Whether you like guns or whether you don't like guns. I don't own guns. I don't have guns. I don't mind guns. But it's not a vote on guns. This is a development proposal. I've stood at this podium a couple times in regards to development proposals in Parker before. One particular one was a use by special review. Happened to be a drug rehab facility in my neighborhood. And I was particularly opposed to that. But I got an opportunity through that process to understand what this process is. And what this process is a determination of whether the use by special review meets the criteria. For a while, I've been watching this process for 2 years, maybe more now. For a while, I thought perhaps the planning department had it out for this business, that they were attempting to scare off this developer, that they were trying to make it extremely financially strenuous, and the requirements presented just to get to this stage were onerous at a minimum. And now I think the Planning Commission's actually done this developer a favor, because I cannot think of, in my 17 years of being a Parker resident, any development that has been as well vetted as this one has. These people have gone through air studies, sound studies. They've done things that you would never ask another business to do, and the only reason you're asking them to do it is because there's a 4-letter word in the topic. G-U-N-S, right? Take that out and nobody would be asking them for this. For this reason, I'm asking you guys to listen to the planning department. They have put a lot of time and effort into this, and the people that say, hey, I'm all about this, but not in this location, I can tell you that if you say no to this, you're saying no to a local business in Parker. The shape of this building makes it very difficult to find property for it. And we started tonight by celebrating business has been here for 25 years, and I ask you to do this on the merits of the proposal tonight, not on the concerns about having a disaster-proof development. There's no such thing, and we can't make anything perfect. But these people have gone to extreme costs and extreme level of scrutiny to satisfy the town's requirements, and I think that that needs to be considered very heavily tonight. I encourage you to support the business and support another Parker resident in having a business owned in Parker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Elmore. I'm at 15577 East Maidenhair Lane in Parker, Colorado. I have made my concerns well clear to the council in emails, as well as many others of emails of objection, and I would like to ask the council to please read those emails in addition to everyone speaking today. One of my neighbors isn't able to speak her words tonight. She's not emotionally or physically able to come here today. After reading her words, I told her I would speak as her proxy, and these are her words. Parker should have a gun range. Clearly there is a high demand and something residents want, but it does not need to back to homes. A person's home is their safe place in the world. It is a place they go to recharge. I am highly concerned about the noise. It does not seem that the developer can guarantee that neighbors will not hear gunshots. Gunshots are a different noise than cars. Most people do not suffer PTSD from car noise, but there is a large amount of people that suffer PTSD. I am a victim of gun violence. 20 years ago, 2 young men walked into my school and killed 13 innocent people. The thought of hearing gunshots on a daily basis is frightening to me. I have gone through anxiety, depression, and other symptoms of PTSD. I know my triggers, and gunshots would be near the top. Gunshots bring back the fear of April 20th. The thought of a gun range coming into my neighborhood and forcing me to relive these horrible memories on a daily basis is just too much for me. In no way is this harmonious. It is causing me mental anguish. Thank you for your time. I hope that you do the right thing and oppose this location for the gun range. My neighbor wished to be anonymous, but her house is on that map. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jim Levine. I live at 20715 Omaha Avenue in Parker. And I am here to speak in support of the Back 40 gun range. I have heard many well-articulated statements in support of this. And as I'm hearing them, I am reminded of when I was asked to serve on a citizens committee for finding a location for the new Arapahoe County Jail. And it became very clear to us that everybody wanted a new jail, but they didn't want it in their neighborhood. And it also became very clear to us in that process that their concerns about a jail attracting a criminal element were sort of illogical. The last place a criminal wants to hang around is a jail. And I would submit to you that anyone with criminal intent, the last place they want to congregate or loiter about would be at a facility where people that are coming and going there are well trained in the use of firearms. The other point I would just like to make is about the individual, Ryan Buswell, who has endeavored to do this and endeavored to do it very well. I've known Ryan for a number of years, and I know the type of person that he is. Everything he undertakes, he does right. He does the right thing. He does it properly, and he does it well. He always goes beyond what's good enough to doing it extremely well. And he operates with integrity too. So I think those are extremely important factors. One last comment I would just leave you with. I too am a gun owner, and I go to the Centennial Gun Club. I have never, ever, in all the times I've been there, heard a gunshot outside of the building. I've been there at various times during the day. So I don't think the sound that folks are concerned about actually travels beyond the walls to a perceptible level. And those are my comments. I would urge you to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Tim Hicks, 10540 Humboldt Peak Way, Parker, 80138. I thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for the time to speak tonight. And there have been some really great points made tonight, and I don't think I have much to say that has not already been said, but I will say this. Having grown up in West Texas myself, I've shot rifles, I've gone deer hunting, I know lots of people that own guns. This is not an argument about guns, this has already been said. What it is about, though, is training. And I can tell you the loss in my left ear is a result of my not having been adequately trained on a gun before I went and tried to use it. I am not against guns or gun owners. I think they have that right until it's otherwise noted. But what we do need is training. Absolutely, we need the right training. We need opportunities for, especially for students. One of my close relatives is a national finalist archer. And she had to have some place or another to go and practice that in order to compete at the level that she did. So I'm not saying this is not a good idea. What I am saying is this location is not a good idea, and here's why. If you look at the map, you've got to the south, to the northwest, and the northeast of the location houses. Immediately to the southeast is Echo Park Stadium. As a Legend Band parent for a number of years, I probably spent 5, 6, maybe even more years working the Legend Marching Festival. And I can tell you that location right across Double Angel from that location is a place where we park our buses. We have hundreds upon hundreds of kids at the Legend Marching Festival that are right there in that location, that are right there on that street, in the stadium, all the way down to Double Angel. And to me, it does represent a safety concern. It also, to me, is not harmonious to the neighborhood. I will remind the council of what I call the balloon building, the indoor sports part of Dumble Angel, and how everybody raised such a fit about how it was not harmonious when it was intended just simply for sports, not for a shooting sport. So I would like to ask the council to take all these things into consideration and vote against this particular location for the range. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address for the record.
Joelle Lamb, 12755 Forest Canyon Drive, 80138. I'm for this, absolutely for this. I'm retired from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. I spent my career doing hazardous materials waste management and air pollution. I listened carefully to all of the comments brought about by decibels, lead levels, and a negative HVAC system. I personally worked in a negative HVAC system for 7 years in a petroleum lab. I support this on a lot of levels. As a lady shooter, I've taken my concealed carry, and I believe in training, training, training. I still need more training. I think training is an ongoing thing, and I hate having to go north or out to Byers to shoot. I don't like going up to the more populated areas. I think Douglas County is a class act. And I think Douglas County deserves to have the benefits of this range. The benefits clearly, to me, outweigh some of the cultural things that are going on here. I think the benefits are tremendous, and I'd rather know how to shoot my gun, work with it, feel comfortable, and learn, because that's what's going to keep me safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. I want to make note that tonight's the first council meeting in a long time that I didn't wear flannel, and like half the room has flannel on tonight, so I didn't get the right memo. Sir.
Robert Ham, 11203 Latigo Lane, Parker, Colorado. First off, thank you all for this opportunity tonight. Mr. Mayor, you did mention that in the beginning there were more requests for recreational activities. And this by far is absolutely one of a great recreational activity I think many people ought to take advantage of. There have been many comments regarding the bad location, accidental discharges in the parking lot where guns and ammunition come together, but yet there are stores that sell both. Therefore, ammunition and guns are coming together. And I do want to ask, how many times have you heard, I've never heard of this, I didn't research this, of an accidental discharge in a gun range have you ever heard of that? I've never heard of that. I've never witnessed that in the news. So I don't know how often that actually happens. And I think the reason why is because people who attend gun ranges are responsible individuals. I do believe that students that are concerned about the sporting facility, I don't know for a fact, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are some weapons at that facility. I don't know for sure, but I would not be surprised if there were. I think that there are more guns around than people actually know, and would probably be shocked about the number of weapons actually in the neighborhoods already, and you don't hear of them just arbitrarily going off. I don't think that that is truly a concern. This, I do believe, would be a profitable venture and would support many of the people in the community where they would give an opportunity to be able to go and shoot their weapons and their bows, in my case. This would directly translate to a strong tax revenue that would be worth millions to the city of Parker. And for this reason, and the fact that I want to use the facility, I would like for you to vote yes. If you were to vote no, provide a different location. If you know of another location that would be a better location, I mean, obviously Ryan has looked for this, haven't been able to find one. The city of Parker, the town people have said, we want a facility like this. If this isn't the place, where is a better place that this could actually take place? because the city does need a facility like this, and that's been obviously clearly made, I believe, in this thing. And if there's no other place, then I choose this place. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Alrighty. Hello, my name is Ethan Reed, and I am a sophomore at Legend High School, and I live at 11984 Pine Top Street, Parker, Colorado. I am here today concerning the proposal of the proposed back 40 gun and archery range that would be right across the road of Echo Park Stadium on Double Angel Road. First of all, putting a gun and archery range right across from a stadium full of youth for events such as graduations, homecomings, and football games put the youth at risk. And it's not a debated statement when I say that even people who reside next to Echo Park Stadium do not want a gun range that close within neighborhoods and schools. It poses a risk to many families, and on top of that, the gun range would lead to a costly decrease in home values nearby and would attract specific crimes to occur, such as break-ins. Additionally, that being said, I would like to point out that Echo Park Stadium does not have any sort of high security nor security guards that are armed to potentially, in the event of gun violence, be able to defend. I am only pointing out a clear danger, which is the open use of firearms in a building that would be occurring right across from the stadium. I, as a student, along with many others, have expressed how students in our society now have this personal fear of coming to school every day and thinking that we could be the next potential statistic for a school shooting. Every morning, I have a personal fear when I'm dropped off at school by my parents, whether it's the last time they'll see me or not. It's a real problem, and students today as well also have this fear, where not only do they have to plan out exit routes in an event of gun violence, but also of seeing our parents for the last time if in the event of a school shooting occurring at our school. This is not a local fear, this is a national fear, and I want to point out how this gun range would create a more fear for students that attend schools nearby, such as Prairie Crossing Elementary School and Lutheran High School. As I wrap up, I deeply hope that the honorable council people will think thoroughly and hard about what they are about to do to the community, the town, and most of all, the students who will become the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ethan, thank you very much for coming and voicing your opinion. That's great. Always great to see our youth here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up.
And that was Legend High School.
That was... All right. Everyone watch. Yeah, exactly. Name and address for the record, please.
Hello, council members, mayor, and fellow concerned citizens. My name is Logan Samuels. I live at 9668 Paper Flower Drive here in Parker. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
Don't be nervous. It's all good.
This is my second time speaking here. The last time I was here was for the Planning Commission. So I'm 17 and I'm a senior at Legend High School. I am here on behalf of a large group of students who are opposed to the location of the proposed back 40 archery and shooting range. Parker prides itself as a safe community filled with lovely people. In fact, even the Parker website states in the town master plan that some core values are vision, balance, and community. Well, I have a vision where I can go to football games and graduations without fear of a shooter coming from right next door. I have a vision where I can come back for homecoming, because I'm graduating this year, and enjoy the scenery without the interruptions of shots. I have a vision where adults take us, the students, seriously when we say we do not feel safe. But now let's talk balance. As politicians, balance and bipartisanship can be hard. I get that. But here's the balance. A shooting range where safety and education are the #1 priority in an area where people wholeheartedly support the location. But in this situation, where people with children, people with PTSD, mental illnesses, students, and other situations are expressing their opposition, it's neither balanced nor harmonious. And lastly, community. Most people, mainly politicians, view community as people who vote them in and then pay their bills, or ultimately, as you said earlier today, we pay them so you can spend our money. But it's not just that. It is the children, the ones who will not be able to play outside due to parents' fear. It is the homeowners, who will likely lose potential home buyers due to decreased property values. It is the neighbors, who see their friends leaving Parker left and right due to the new building just yards from their home. It is the teachers who will no longer feel safe at football games, instead feeling like if it came down to it, they would lay down their lives for their students. And speaking of, it's the students, the people who this legislation will affect the most. We already don't feel safe in school, so why should we feel unsafe outside of it? So, as you make your decision this evening, please take us, the students, and what we say seriously before it's too late. Thank you.
Logan, thank you very much. And same thing, I appreciate you coming out and speaking to us. Thank you very much. Next up. Name and address, please.
Neil Weiser, 7539 Stroh Road, Parker. Members of the council, just start out by saying I'm a 20-year resident of Parker. I've seen a lot of businesses come and go here, and there's certainly a whole bunch of them we have too many of, not to mention specifics, but we sure don't need any more Mexican restaurants, banks, nail salons, or tire stores. I think it would be great for us to have one of something, and this is something that we truly need. My son's played sports at Echo Park, and I wouldn't have any more apprehension of him going there when there's a gun store next door than when there's anything else happening. I don't know that there's any statistical correlation at all between a nearby gun range and these kind of horrific things that we've seen happening at high schools and other kind of public venues. I will say this, I think education is a lot more valuable than fear. And having a safe place where kids can learn to responsibly handle weapons instead of learning it from a buddy or in a parking lot and not in a managed situation, I think is a lot more dangerous. And so I'm in support of this, and I hope the council will find it in their wisdom to approve it.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Whitney Weiser. I live at 7539 East Stroh Road, Parker, Colorado. I was president of a local 4-H organization last year, and we have many kids that participate in shotgun, rifle, and archery, and they've had nowhere to practice locally. So I support the Back 40 gun range so that the kids in my organization will have a local place where they can practice and learn about firearms safely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Whitney, where do you go to school?
I go to Regis.
Okay, not Legend. Just wanted to make sure you were aware it wasn't a Legend.
2 for Legend, 1 for
Next up, please. Name and address for the record.
My name is Ashlyn Winter. I go to Legend, but my address is 10311 Rancho Montecito Drive. And although I can see how the gun range might be a point of interest, I can also see how it might be a point of panic. Not chaos per se, but just panic that people won't feel safe. And someone here, I believe it was you in the voter jacket, that said that we can't really know what students feel like. Well, I mean, I can. I am a student, and I go to Legend, and my games and my homecomings are at Echo Park, and my friends and the people that I love play and go there all the time. And according to some surveys that I've seen, there has been 61 mass shootings since March 19, 2019, which has been less than a month ago. And I know that personally, and I think that I can speak on behalf of a lot of my peers when I say that if a gun range was developed right next to a frequent place that I visit, I would constantly be thinking, is this going to be number 62, number 63, number 64? I won't know, and I won't feel safe in a place where I should feel the safest, around people that I love and around people that, you know, I know. And so I ask you, people of the council, to imagine yourselves in my position, where this could potentially put a lot of people that you know and people that you love in potential danger. And so I ask you to, when you vote, to vote no. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming up and speaking. You're always welcome here to talk, so don't worry about it. Young lady, you're up next. And what school do you go to?
Oh, thank you.
Name and address for the record, please.
I'm Amy Camp. I live at 15585 East Maidenhair Lane. I live on the map that is shown above. I've emailed you many of my concerns, and I hope you've read them all carefully. As I listen tonight, I can't help but notice a trend from our crowd. There's a group of passionate people that live in Parker that want a place to shoot their guns. They don't really seem to care where it goes. Then you have those of us that actually use the area and that actually live on that map. Many of us support a gun range that teaches safety, but we do not believe it belongs in our neighborhood near the high school stadium. To us, this is not a Second Amendment issue, this is a location issue. We've done our research, and a gun range is not in harmony with our neighborhood. If it were, we wouldn't have this many people tonight opposing it. It brings too many risks to our neighborhood, and we've expressed our concerns about the sound and air pollution. We also have concerns about the criminal activity it would bring to our neighborhood. I'd like to present a document to the town council. Since the Centennial Gun Range seems to be the one that we all keep quoting, I have a record of the police presence at Centennial Gun Club for the last 5 years. Please take some time to look over the document. It's 8 pages, but I can summarize for you. In the last 5 years, there have been 46 calls for business alarm in progress, most of them happening between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. 12 suspicious person reports, again in the wee hours of the morning of 1, 2, and 3 a.m. 7 reports of property lost, 1 suicide threat, 1 report of shots fired, and 12 warrant arrests. I ask you to consider this compared to your typical commercial business, a dentist's office, a coffee shop, a family-friendly restaurant. How do these numbers compare? Is this what we want happening in our neighborhood? Would you want your house next to this? Next to where your kids are going to homecoming? A gun range brings way too many risks to our neighborhood. We are concerned about the safety of our homes, about the kids at their school events, and to be honest, I'm scared about the next shooting that could happen at this stadium because a gun range poses an opportunity. Those of us that are here that share these concerns, we don't want to be right. How many of these risks are we willing to take? If any one of these risks end up happening in reality, it's too many. You have a chance here tonight to stop this. How will it look if we are the town or the town council that made the mistake of putting a gun range next to the homes in the high school stadium? How will this headlines read? We need to find another place for this location. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please. Like you didn't know I was going to say that, you know. I wake up at like 2 in the morning going, name and address.
Can you put this up for me, please?
Yeah. Then my wife goes, Pam Wade, 19164.
Back out a little bit more. Right there.
All right. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Erica Elmore, and I live at 15577 East Maidenhair Lane here in Parker. My home is shown on that previous map within half a mile of this proposed site. I show you this map here where you can see the school buses for Echo Park Stadium within 500 feet of this facility. I'd like to state some facts for you. Fact: Parker Town Council denied the location of a proposed hotel in downtown Parker. It has now found another home. Fact: Parker Town Council worked to annex property and keep a trash transfer facility from being built within 200 feet of homes when residents spoke against it. Fact: You are making a decision for all Douglas County parents when you place a gun range next to a facility that all of our children will attend. Fact: Parker Town Council previously approved a gun range in an area zoned for industrial use. That's where this type of facility belongs. I spoke to all the new council members during your campaign. Statements like, that doesn't belong here, and why would we settle for relatively safe, and why would we risk Parker's safety rating were reasons why I voted you into your seats today. Why would you allow this concentration of weapons in this area so close to school and property and hundreds of students? They have plans for the inside of the building, but they have no control over what happens outside this facility. I hope you will not rush into making a decision. I hope you will get your own consultants. I hope you will review the sound testing done and the equipment. The low-to-the-ground equipment doesn't do much when located by a hill, and low-lying bushes are not going to block sound traveling up to my third-story windows. I went to the Parker website and found verbiage under the vision, mission, and strategic plan. The statement was titled, "Promote a safe and healthy community." From this point on, when I quote, I'll be directly quoting from Parker's strategic plan. By allowing this gun range to be so close to residences, school property, and serve as a flagship business, Parker is contradicting their own statements to protect the safety of residents. Firearms will be sold and rented here. Having a hometown feel means that our community looks out for one another as neighbors. We support a stable and connected community by ensuring the safety and well-being of our residents. This is a quiet part of Parker. I think it is the harmony that we currently have that led the Beehive Assisted Living Facility and Lighthouse Daycare to choose this location. This stadium is the location of high school graduations, prom, band practices, and games. They should not be terrified by surrounding gun sounds, seeing firearms being carried in the adjacent parking lot, and inhaling the fumes of the vented lead. Parker's statement says they will provide vibrant, pedestrian-friendly activity zones. A gun range will negate that statement. If Parker is going to take a proactive focus to protect residents, then you need to deny this gun range at this residential and school-friendly location. Are you willing to be the council that likes the odds and approve this location? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Kim Sylvester. I'm at 15568 East Maidenhair Lane, Parker, Colorado, 80134. And my house is less than a half a mile from the proposed gun range. And I am opposed to this range being built in this area as it is not in harmony with our area. I'm more coming as a concerned parent. I have 3 small children. The first is attending Gold Rush right now, which is less than a mile from this facility. And when you hear, things about guns, you think it's not a gun issue. Well, it is a gun issue. It's not just a local community. Other local communities don't have the risk that this potentially has on everyone, including kids and adults. I work in a healthcare facility, and I have seen people shot accidentally and non-accidentally, and it's something that you never want to see. Just because haven't seen an accidental discharge in a parking lot doesn't mean it won't exist, and I don't think we want to be the first. Thank you for considering all the opinions tonight, and I think we need to find another location for this gun range. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address, please.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I'm Dr. Kevin Wilson.
Oh, that's all right.
So I have a chemical engineering degree, and so I'm going to speak mostly from the 15751 East Meadow Vista Circle.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to speak as much as possible from the technical point of view. I'll start with the sound. And the very first thing, the problem with the sound study is that it lacked a calibration certificate. In order to do a sound study, you need NIST traceable calibration equipment. So he mentioned that he's using a calibrator in the model number, but there was no calibration certificate in the stamped engineering report. So that's the first problem, actually, is that's a huge liability to the city that the sound study that they're basing this whole decision on might not actually be valid. But hopefully it was just an error, and that equipment actually was calibrated. So the other thing is the character of gunfire. The Waves guy talked about impulse noise, but still the character of the noise is different than a door slamming of a car. They might be the same decibel level, but a human ear can tell that one is a gunshot and one is a door slamming. And so can our dogs too. So the sound study also had a L90 of 32 dBA. So L90 means that the sound was above that 90% of the time, which means that 10% of the time it was lower than that. So there were business hours where the noise was 32 dBA, which means that if the gun range is emitting 45 dBAs of sound, that's a lot. That's a lot more than the 32 dBAs. So people are going to hear that. And that's what's important, is they're going to hear that. We've heard about PTSD. We've heard about just people who just don't really want the sound of gunshots in their neighborhood. Yeah, so I heard today that they've gone all the way up to 45 dBA, which is pretty loud compared to 32. And the other thing that the sound study didn't include is, oh dear, I'm running out of time. Okay, the other thing that the sound study didn't include is different seasons. Also, I'd just like to mention really quick that I'm concerned that they're not measuring the
Go ahead
lead.
and finish your thought, because time's up.
Okay, they're not measuring the lead, they're measuring the pressure. So just because the pressure in the system is working doesn't mean that the lead's not getting out.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Next up, please. Name and address, please.
Justin Salmon, 16480 East Hollowhorn Avenue. I live about a mile from, actually live on the street of the elementary school. First off, I do think it's kind of sickening for people to stand up here and act as if your decision is going to cost somebody's lives. That's just not right. Speak the facts, make your argument, but you guys have a tough decision to make. Y'all shouldn't be multiple times be put in a situation where you're going to feel bad if something bad happens. Secondly, you know, I hear fear, I'm worried, I'm concerned. It's all emotional fears. It's fears. Of course, when something happens bad in our country, we see it 24/7, social media. You know what I'm concerned about more is texting and driving, but none of us seem to really get hot about that. More teens die of that. More teens die of car wrecks. So the idea that a simple building next to a sports facility is going to somehow cause a mass shooting, well, let me tell you something. Mass shooters do go to big crowds. So that alone is a threat. So should we all stop going to baseball games and other sporting events in our communities? Because that's a soft target. You know, I have a disability, but, you know, people are always making this an emotional thing. It's just a building. And there's guns everywhere. There's guns probably in the stadiums, like other gentleman said. Nobody knows it. They're there for a good thing. But, you know, you stand in line at every grocery store, convenience store, people have guns on them. It doesn't suddenly make it dangerous to have a building to shoot at. You know, I'm really in favor of this. My one concern as a homeowner would be the noise. I would not want something that's gonna bother me. I'm an expert in hearing, my own hearing. I did go to Centennial Gun Club, which other people have mentioned. There are a lot of businesses around there. There's 2 major hotels. There's about 15 that I counted, little strip mall, various little things that you go in. There is U.S. Food Service behind there. It gets a little dark. My dad works there. He says people try to break in there all the time. So there's a lot of businesses around that Centennial Gun Club that chose to build there after the gun club was built. 2 hotels. Now, yes, they have soundproofing windows, but they told me that was for the fighter jets that often take out. They said they don't hear any gunshots from their hotel. They do hear the fighter jets. I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Next up, please. And before you start, ma'am, just so everyone's aware, because it's probably going through everyone's mind, believe it or not, we have a law that says if we're going to go past 10 p.m., council actually has to vote on it. So we're going to go past 10 p.m. So when it gets to 10 p.m., If council votes in the affirmative for us to go past 10 p.m., we will take a 5-minute potty break. So if you're crossing your legs going, hurry it up, we'll be good. So, ma'am, name and address for the record, please.
My name is Stella Gimpilayova. I live at 16034 East Flying Quail Lane. It's a Horse Creek subdivision, right across the street. I am 100% in support of the archery and gun range. And here's why. We talk about children for the second time. I was here the first time on March 14th. It's time for our kids to get off the couches and leave the electronic devices and participate in sport that teach them be fearless, be courageous, be fit, not afraid of life, not afraid of what's gonna happen tomorrow or what if. I would love to be a helicopter mom, and I couldn't be because I raised a fearless woman who became a Marine, who actively serve overseas right now. And it was because at 11 years old, she was the youngest at home, and we introduced her to the firearms. And she was never afraid, but she always had a high level of responsibility, discipline, time management, fitness, physical and mental. And that's how I want to see our next generation. Fit, courageous, fearless, because they're gonna run the country. Now, one thing about the real estate location, people who oppose that, they're never gonna be happy with any location you'll find. It's not about location. Yes, it is about location, because any location is gonna have people around, businesses, warehouses, houses, anything, cows on the field, and there's always gonna be people who's gonna complain, who's not gonna like it. So good luck to you. About noise and lead, people can find lead in their household items that came from overseas. It's a proven fact. Some of your houses were built with formaldehyde on your walls. Look around, test it. Good luck, guys. I'm 100% for you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Dennis Hopper, address 6722 Chalet Circle here in Parker. I too am an ex-veteran, Army Airborne Ranger. I'm also a troop leader of local Scout Troop 868, where these scouts go out and train and shoot rifles and shotguns and archery. My son participates in a week-long camp that fires all the way up to a 50 cal. You know, I hear a lot of fear here tonight. The fear is something that's true because of what we have in our society. But what I don't hear is the safety. There's a man out there in uniform that's keeping us safe. A lot of the scouts I train, one day, many of them turn into military who protect us, into law enforcement who protect us. We are protected by people that learn and respect and are law-abiding citizens. I'm totally for this because it will help train our future leaders, our real leaders, that protect us day and night, that put their lives on the line, like many of us have in here and many of us going forward. If we had scouts here left tonight, I guarantee most of them participate and enjoy shooting and learning safety and respect about weapons. Thank you. I appreciate you hearing me. And again, thank God and USA for the protection that we have.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service. Next up, please. Oh, we're going to be here for a while, so you take your time. Take your 3 minutes. Okay. If I don't take a potty break at 10 o'clock, these guys will shoot me.
Okay.
That was a joke. Come on, people. Gosh, I thought at least one of you would do the dun-dun.
April Fools, right?
Yeah, April Fools,
Okay,
all right.
Okay. My name is...
Name and address, please.
My name is Betty Caveney, and I live at 14583 Haley Avenue in the Heirloom neighborhood where the Back 40 gun range has been proposed, and I'm on that map right there. I know that there has been much political discussion surrounding this, but for me, this is about what will go into the commercial strip in front of my neighborhood. I went to the meeting and heard the presentation from the Back 40 representatives. I thought their business plan was very professional and security-minded. They were happy to answer all of our questions, and I felt that they were genuinely trying to address and accommodate any concerns. Guns are not really my thing, but I'm excited to try out the archery classes. I'm actually glad that this has been a bit controversial because no proposed business will be more scrutinized or vetted than this one. They have to do it right because everyone's watching, and I think that they will. I can think of other businesses that would be much less desirable and we would not know about it until a sign went up. Some people are concerned about property value, but I think anything built in that commercial strip will devalue the houses directly across the street because they've got a field there, and who wouldn't want that? I'm not concerned about Back 40, and I'm in favor of moving this plan forward. And I want to say to the kids that are afraid to go to school, because this touches me as a mother and a grandmother. I was armed rod when I was 24 years old in a Gap store, and I was afraid to shop for a while. Now think about that. How long are you going to let that fear take you down? But you have to move forward, and you can't be afraid of the world, because bad things can happen anywhere. And I think I'll be just as safe at Back 40 as I would in a Gap store. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, next up, and then after you, we'll do our motion to potty break. Name and address, please.
My name is Timothy Waters. I live at 23098 East River Chase Way in Parker, 80138. I wasn't going to speak, just came here to listen, but I heard too much stuff about PTSD and stuff like that. I had to come up here. 9-year veteran. PTSD, one of the most relaxing things for me and one of my favorite hobbies is shooting a gun. It brings me out of that, it gets me where I need to be. Firearms instructor in the military, firearms instructor now. There's nothing better than learning how to use this stuff correctly. Guns don't kill people, people kill people, plain and simple. I have 3 kids, 2 of which, all 3 go to Legend. 2 of which have already been to Echo Park. The 3rd one will be going there for graduation, and I can't even name the events. He's not quite there yet. He's still in Cimarron, but he will be there shortly. All of my kids have learned how to shoot a gun from 11 years old. Every one of them shoot. They're not afraid of guns. They respect them. Proper training from a firearms instructor will make it that way, will make this country safer than just being afraid. One other thing I wanted to say. The most notorious mass shooter in Colorado, and I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want him to have this publicity, did not go to the firearm range just down the road from the theaters. He went 100 miles away to Granby to learn how to shoot those guns. That's where he went because he didn't want anyone there around him seeing what he was doing, because there was instructors at the proper ranges. The one he went to had no supervision at all. So, you know, I don't live in that area. I could understand if someone was putting one by mine. Actually, I think even if there was one right next door to mine, I'd want it, because firearms is one of my favorite things. Just got into shooting the bow, avid hunter, and my son has now joined the military. So, I just hope you guys take this for what it is. There's as many people who support it, if not more, than are against it. And, you know, I think these guys have done a fantastic job of laying this out and doing what needs to be done to make sure that's done correctly. I'll let y'all take your restrooms a break. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service. All right, so Council Cheryl, you were out when I mentioned it, but there is actually an ordinance that says we can't go past 10 p.m. unless you guys vote for it. So I'll need a motion and a second to continue the meeting past 10 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Josh and a second by Renee. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. You guys who are in line, don't worry, you're not going to lose your spot. If you need to go hit the restroom, turn to your on, Michelle. Is this your first time? I know. She just left when we all came back, so. Divert, exactly. Divert. I'm just a little worried about our legend kids. I know you guys have never been up past 10 o'clock before.
Hey guys, tell Mike Ackerman you were hanging out with me. You can start at 8 tomorrow.
I have a senior at Ponderosa. He doesn't even start thinking about getting prepared to bed till like 11 o'clock. So I'm just...
Ponderosa, Jeff.
I know, Ponderosa. So let's go ahead and we're going to reconvene the town council meeting at 10:11 p.m. Young lady, thank you for being so patient. Come on down, and if you say you go to Ponderosa High School, that would be awesome, but name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lindsay Quist. I live at 18140 Tennyson Lane in Parker, Colorado. I grew up, actually in California, but I grew up with guns in the family. My father, as a hobby, sells, refurbishes, and collects a lot of guns. And so I grew up going to the gun range, and when we go and visit, we still spend a lot of time at the gun range. It's something he enjoys doing. So I understand the value of a gun range, and I understand really the importance of it. People learn safe gun practices at the gun range, and that's wonderful, and that's something that our community may very well need. But I do not believe we need it near a school location. I'm concerned about the harmony issue that you guys bring up. We know now, and we're kind of learning more and more every day, there's more and more studies showing the psychological effects on children from living in this generation with gun violence in schools. We used to think it was simply children who had been in a school where shots were fired, but we're now finding out that it's children who have lockdown practices once or twice a year. It's kids who are reading these stories online and know about the dangers out there everywhere. Now, the odds of something happening at their school are very small, but the fear is very big for a lot of students. And I believe putting a gun range in near a location that is used by so many high schools in our community, and not just high schools in Parker, but high schools travel in here to go to band, what am I trying to say? I never participated in band competitions, to go to football games, things like that. It's going to affect all of those students, and it may increase the fear that they are experiencing every day. It may actually decrease participation in certain sports if families don't want their children at that location, or if kids themselves don't feel safe in that environment. And so I ask that you guys find a new location for this proposed gun range. I think it could add value to the community, but I do not believe this is the correct location for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address, please.
My name is Brad Hudepole. I live at 8532 Bluegrass Circle here in Parker, and I'm going to be very brief tonight. I'm 100% in favor of the Back 40 gun and archery range for 2 reasons: education and training. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up. I like him.
It's the beard.
It's the beard. Name and address for the record, please.
Tina Hudepole. I live at 852, wait, what is my address? 8532 Bluegrass Circle here in Parker. I do not enjoy public speaking at all.
You're fine,
and
don't worry.
I foolishly did not take any notes, but I wanted to take the chance to express my support for Back 40. My husband and I both enjoy shooting guns, and we rarely do just for lack of opportunity, and it's not convenient for us to go shoot guns. And based on that alone, I see it as a value in our community that we would have a place nearby where we could go and shoot our guns. Also, I grew up with guns my whole life, and I have a basic knowledge and I'm comfortable around guns, but I still need training. And just the fact that they're going to be offering training and classes also is very valuable, in my opinion, for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. If she's wearing a Legend sweatshirt, seriously?
Legend bands.
Name and address, please.
I'm Erin Farney. My address is 20580 East Regency Way, Parker, Colorado 80138. As you can see by my shirt that I'm wearing, I am a Legend marching band student. And I'd say, in my experience, marching band students use the Echo Park Stadium probably almost as much, if not more, than any other students at Legend. I personally do not see any issues with a gun range across the street. I've heard concerns about accidents, but as others have pointed out, there will be classes offered, gun safety classes, which would decrease the risk of accidents. I also hear concerns about school shootings. And as others have pointed out, a potential school shooter is not going to want to go to a well-regulated place like this sounds like it is going to be in order to learn how to shoot a gun so they can massacre students. I did not actually plan on speaking tonight, but and also I heard people speaking on behalf of Legend Marching Band that had nothing that I knew of to do with the actual marching band. And I feel like I'm rambling now.
You're fine. You're doing fine. You can take as much time as you want until you get to 0. You could sing a little song. What do you play? You know, whatever. But once it gets 0, I got to cut you off.
And I've also heard concerns with noise that are less so than the other stuff. But I have to point out, the Colorado State for a 1A, 2A, 3A marching band competition is held at Echo Park every year. If that noise is allowed and you've got sousaphones and piccolos and other very, very loud instruments playing at like 10 o'clock at night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And seriously, you should never, ever worry about being nervous. We're all regular people up here, too. Come on up. You're next up. I just want to know what a piccolo is. Okay. Small flute. All right. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Wendy Regan. I live at 10691 Worthington Circle, Parker, Colorado. I just want to point out my Chaparral student is here with me tonight.
There you go. All right.
Just a shout out for Chap. I'm just letting you know that I am opposed to this location for this gun range. I am not opposed to a gun range in Parker. I do feel that this group has put a tremendous amount of effort and thought into this. I've been to a couple of the meetings concerning this gun range. I still oppose this. I oppose this location. I work in Douglas County School District. I work at Rocky Heights Middle School. I would not want my students nor my children to go to Echo Park knowing that this is out there and there are people in this parking lot handling weapons and guns while my kids and my students, who I love, are out in this location. There has to be a better place. Parker is huge. You can build another storage facility anywhere in this place. There's storage facilities everywhere. We can find a better place for this gun range. It is, I like that it is going to educate and train people. I think that's a huge, huge, huge thing, and I think it's a very good thing. It is not a good thing for this location. These people in these homes do not need this in their backyard. We do not need this in our backyard for our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Shannon Fitzgerald. My address is 11817 Diorio Street. I'm an attorney in the securities industry working with several of the nation's stock exchanges as well as the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, among others. As a result, I am experienced in interpreting complex laws, regulations, and the like. The Planning Division staff and commissioners have determined the back 40 range satisfies the first criterion for use by special review on the basis that archery and shooting are sports, and the range would thus be in harmony and compatible with the Double Angel Stadium and Ruders Hess Reservoir. Yet this assessment seems to be considerably myopic. I agree that archery falls squarely within the sporting category, which is likely why an outdoor archery range is already included in the reservoir's recreational plan. However, one of the primary uses for guns is self-defense, which has nothing at all to do with sports. Furthermore, unlike the stadium or reservoir, the back 40 gun range invokes fear of bodily harm, as many have expressed to you this evening and in letters to the Planning Division and Mayor. There can be no doubt that this fear of physical injury exists, even if it is intangible, and so it absolutely is relevant in analyzing whether back 40 would be in harmony and compatible with the surrounding areas and neighborhood. Some of you, like some of the commissioners, may feel that the fear of bodily harm from guns is unwarranted based on your own experience with guns. You may also feel that it's misplaced and that the gun education proposed to be offered by back 40 would resolve this fear, as some here tonight have suggested, as well as one commissioner suggested. Yet those beliefs would be irrelevant, since your job this evening, as you well know, is to weigh the facts presented against the municipal code. And the facts are, the fear associated with this gun range has been established by students and residents, and this fear is rational, even if you yourselves don't share in it. Guns are designed and used to kill, bullets are made of lead, and robberies of gun stores do, in fact, occur. The municipal code does not define the words harmony or compatible, so borrowing from the Oxford English Dictionary, harmony is the quality of forming a pleasing and consistent whole. Compatibility is being able to exist or occur together without problems or conflict. In applying these definitions, the fears attributable to the gun range are in stark contrast to the overall joyous sentiments towards the stadium and reservoir. These facilities together surely then do not form a consistent whole, nor do they exist without conflict. Back 40 would therefore not be in harmony or compatible with the character of the surrounding areas and neighborhood, particularly if relying on the mere assertion that archery and shooting are sporting activities akin to those occurring within the stadium or on the reservoir grounds. To suggest otherwise would be to disregard essential truths and frankly be analogous to concluding that an adult bookstore is in harmony with a used bookstore simply because both establishments sell books. While both are indeed bookstores, they clearly have distinct attributes. So it is my professional opinion that the
Thank you very
council-
much, Shannon. Time is up, so we'll go ahead and invite the next one up. Thank you very much. Name and address for the record, please.
Jamie Sunderman, and I live at 14933 Ryder Place, Parker. I live in this development here. My house is approximately, I didn't count exactly, but I want to say 10 houses away from the proposed site. And I'm from Lamar, Colorado originally. I know what a back 40 is. This is not a back 40. I love shooting guns. They're exhilarating. They are fun. I've shot some pretty big stuff. I've shot a lot of little stuff. It's a lot of fun. Again, I don't want to step outside my backyard or go for a walk in this lovely open space with my girls and listen to gunshots that whole time. The other thing I wanted to say is that, you know, Shannon, you didn't mention you two live in this neighborhood. So there are a lot of residents in the area who were afraid to speak tonight. Parker's a pretty conservative town, and they were just afraid to get up here to speak in front of their neighbors. So unfortunately, they're not here tonight. But I think that a shooting range in the proper location is a great idea. Everyone has spoken a lot about education. I think education is important. No one has discussed the fact that you have to have the means to pay for this education. No one is regulating that this education happen. If I walk in and I purchase a gun from you, sir, are you regulating, are you mandating that I get the training required to handle this weapon? And I have not heard that addressed tonight. If that were addressed, I might not have as many fears. Unfortunately, that has not been addressed, and I realize that that is a regulatory issue, and I hope that that will happen someday. As a native of Colorado, I have been exposed to multiple mass shootings in Colorado, and some have been trained, some have been not. The fact is they all had access to guns. The fact is we have people around us who are responsible. I have military family who have served multiple times. I love and respect them dearly. They lock up their firearms, they keep them safe. They keep them away from their kids. I have people in my family who serve in the police department, in the state patrol, and I can tell you, they keep their kids away from guns unless they have been trained properly. They have the means to pay for that training. So please, I encourage you to vote against this. Let's find them a back 40 somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please.
Good
Name and
evening.
address, please.
Yes, Mark Gasper, 42241 Broken Horn Circle, Parker, Colorado, 80138. First off, I want to touch on a couple things that you brought in the beginning of the night, celebrations. I'd like to see Ryan, a local business owner, living in Parker, supporting the Parker community, be here 25 years later, getting one of those certificates. You also touched on the success of the Racquet Club. That is a public-private partnership which costs the city of Parker money to put in place for recreational facilities. Ryan can do this privately alone, bring tax revenue to Parker without the need for additional supporting funds from the city of Parker. I think those two things are wins in and of themselves. Lots of very valid opinions this evening, passionate pleas. All in all, though, I'm 100% in support of Ryan having his gun club in Parker, Colorado. You know, I've heard a lot about safety and accidental discharges. Accidents happen. That's the whole nature of an accident. We have somebody outside protecting us. Could he have an accidental discharge? Sure. But he probably won't because he trains, and he trains, and he trains, and training begets safety. Certainly, we can't stop people from doing bad things in this world, but the more we can train individuals, the better they can be safe if they're willing and wanting to be that individual. Curiosity, that can be dangerous too. No different than a 14-year-old taking a car out for a drive without going to driver's education, getting the correct classes, correct permits, having time behind the wheel with an adult driver. The incidence of them going out and taking a couple of joyrides, much more likely to end in disaster than somebody that's been trained properly and had the appropriate supervision and guidance while learning something new that can be a dangerous activity. Overall, I've heard a couple things tonight, and I heard about the NIOS, and I wasn't familiar with that, and I looked it up. Granted, it's a kind of a think tank, a research and education facility, created at the same time as OSHA. In the same 1970 Act, it reports to the CDC. CDC and OSHA actually have enforcement and guidelines that they provide and for regulation. I believe we heard in the planning session that Back 40 is going to meet or exceed all OSHA requirements. As a governing body, supporting governing laws in the city, state, and country of the United States, that's what we'd be held to, not a one-off research paper. If I followed all researches, I would have been dead from eggs, I would have lived for 100 years from eggs, and this week again, I'm dying from eggs, even though I'm gonna have those almost every day with some bacon for breakfast. There's certainly merit to studies, and research brings us a long ways, but there can be conflicts. I would look to the bodies that actually lay out those laws to move us forward. And I think by approving the 9 criteria in the Planning Commission, the special use permit approval, this board needs to take, or the council needs to take into account the legalities of what's out there and not a lot of opinions, and guide by that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please, and please say Ponderosa.
I wish. My name's Diana Hempel O'Byrne, and I live at 15101 Yellowthroat Street in Parker, Colorado, 80134. My family and I live in Parker Homestead, which can be seen on the map there, and it's directly behind the proposed facility on the map. I am very much opposed to this facility, and I'm a proud third-generation Coloradan, and when my husband and I were looking for a home, we found that Douglas County was and still is a very desirable location. The schools are consistently ranked among the best in the country. Our neighbors are some of the nicest people that we've ever met. And we really love all that the town of Parker has to offer, especially the open spaces. A gun range and a store so close to our homes where children can be heard playing outside across the street from a church, a baseball field, a sports stadium, and right up the road from an elementary school, I do not believe is in harmony with our neighborhood. And I also believe that the HVAC system would be loud, and I would like the city to hire its own consultants to address this issue. My husband and I chose to start our family in this neighborhood because we don't like hearing the sound of police sirens, and I'm afraid of what having this facility in our neighborhood could do. I don't think that our community deserves a high concentration of weapons, and I do hope that you take into account the voice. Sorry, my son gave me RSV. So take into account the voice of people like me who are directly impacted and who would have their day-to-day lives severely disrupted by this facility. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I hope you feel better. Next up, sir. Name and address, please.
My name is Jeff Butler. My address is 10737 Kimball Street, Parker, 80134. And I want to say that I am in favor of the gun range. A lot of things have been said here about it, so I think one thing that really people have been trying to oppose on is harmony to the neighborhood. But I think it is in harmony with the neighborhood because it is a sports activity. It is a family activity. There are people that seem like they want to push that it's not really a family activity, but it is. I do shoot with my children. I have 2 kids in the Douglas County School District, and I think that they need a place here where they can be trained, where they can learn, where they can shoot. There's not a whole lot of places we can go as a family. And there's people saying that it should be pushed into an industrial area, but I don't think it does. Industrial areas really are not family activity areas. And this is, and can very much be, a family activity. I'd rather go someplace closer to the neighborhood than in some of the other gun ranges that are in truly industrial areas that are far from where we are in Parker. And I'd also, with the location with all the students that are there, that's a perfect target market to expose gun ranges to, so that they get an interest in actually training and understanding that a gun is nothing more than a tool that you need to learn how to use and how to use correctly. And the other thing I want to mention is, one thing this range is offering is the archery range. My daughter especially is really interested in that. There's not a whole lot of places that you can do the archery range. I don't think a standalone archery range would be economically viable. I think it comes as an add-on with a gun range. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address for the record, please.
All right. I'm Dr. George Donovan, and I live at 10616 Sedgwick Way in Parker. I'm here today to speak in favor of the Back 40 gun range. And to give you a little background about myself, I'm not a gun owner. I've never had to own a weapon, and I've never felt that I was threatened by other people such that I needed to defend myself. But I am a martial arts instructor, and so I spend a lot of my time teaching students how to do things that would be just as effective as using a gun. And one of the great emphasis that I have in my class is to teach them how to use their technique responsibly and how to exercise self-control. And I think that this is one of the great advantages of having a gun range, especially one that offers classes in safety as well as the responsible use and respect for the weapons that the students employ. You know, when you hold that kind of power in your hand, it is a great responsibility, and it's something that your confidence is only going to come through education. And that's going to require practice and exposure. And when I teach my classes, I often have sparring sessions, and I encourage all of the students to participate. The reason for this is not because I think that it would be a great idea if people went home with bruises, but because I think that you don't develop the confidence to stand in front of an opponent and use your technique until you really see what it looks like for somebody to throw a punch at full speed and feel what it's like to put up a defense and block that attack. And then you have the confidence to counter that attack with your own attack. This is an experience that you can't learn just by standing around and listening to somebody else talk. You have to have the experience. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that a lot of the arguments against this facility seem to be motivated by fear. And fear is something that breeds on ignorance. People are afraid of guns because they don't know how to handle them, they don't know how to use them, they don't know what's going to happen, they don't know what other people are going to do with guns. I feel fairly confident in saying that somebody who goes to do a mass shooting at the stadium there is not going to stop at the parking lot of the gun range on his way in and think, you know, I'm going to do something different tonight. People don't behave that way. People who go to the gun range have been taught to use their weapons responsibly, and they are not going to be the kinds of people to do crazy things like that. There are guns in the community. The gun range is not really going to attract any more of them. It's just going to give people a place where they can go to practice with them and gain confidence in their use. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address, please.
Michael Emsbach, 11873 Phoebe Street. My home's right there in the neighborhood, and first I want to say that I love guns. I'm full support of guns. Ryan, is a business owner myself, I love that you're pushing through all of this to try to get what you want. I hate to say that I just don't think this is the appropriate location, but I hope you don't hold that against me because I would love to use your facility. A few of my concerns are first and foremost, you know, living in that neighborhood, we are surrounded by the sounds of families cheering for their kids, the sounds of kids playing in the streets. I love our neighborhood. I do believe that this will bring a different sound. I know it was talked about that it would sound like a car door closing. When I think of a semi-automatic rifle going off, if that's something that's going to be allowed at your gun range, that's a lot of car doors closing at a very fast speed. And so that's just something that I do not believe is in harmony with our neighborhood, with the surrounding area. When I look at it, I see 75% residential area. I see the school area for the sport activities. I see shooting as a much different activity. Safety is a concern of mine. Air pollution is a concern of mine. Many other people address that, so I won't go into it. But I just really hope to see the coffee shop, the conveniences for a residential area, the things that we would like to use every day as the community surrounding, because we don't have a lot of commercial space there. And having a local coffee shop to go to after a game or whatever we're doing would be awesome to have there. I guess that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address, please.
I knew you were going to ask that.
See, you knew.
I did. Hi, my name is Larissa Emsbach. I live at 11873 Phoebe Street, Parker, Colorado, 80134, in the Parker Homestead neighborhood. I am not at all opposed to a gun range being built in Parker. I am just opposed to the location. I don't feel that it meets that 9 criteria, which I feel that this is all about. I don't believe that it is in harmony with a neighborhood. I also have some concerns about the guarantee of safe lead mitigation. I understand that the builder has the best intentions of doing everything that he can to be safe, but I just don't. I don't trust in best intentions. I also just don't think that. Sorry, super nervous.
Don't be nervous. We're good.
I know. I'm not even a high schooler, and I'm really nervous. So this is really sad. Yeah. I would love to see this in Parker somewhere. I just don't want it in my neighborhood. I don't want it in my backyard. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next up. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it, but you know what to do.
I'm not a doctor or from Legend.
If your name was Dr. Legend, we would just call it a night. We would be done.
Matt Brookshire, 15048 Yellowthroat Street. I live in Parker Homestead. Just down the street from this this proposal. You've heard lots of pros and cons as to people that want the range here, people that don't. I agree with both sides. I'd really like to see a range in Parker. However, I do not want it in my neighborhood. We have kids play in our neighborhood. All the kids at Echo Park, the church, the school. It's just not the right place for it. And because this is a use by special review, it is not a use by right. And despite people saying that meeting the 9 criteria is a rubber stamp for this, it's not. It says it is not limited to these 9 criteria, which leaves some room for some common sense, and I'm glad it does. I want to talk about zoning for a little bit. A gun range is not listed under any current zoning for Parker. The section in the municipal code that deals with this is 13.04.220. It's called uses not itemized. And in there it states, for zoning purposes, that such use is appropriate in the use category that is to be added to, more so than any other use category. So what that means to me is it must meet the 9 criteria, obviously, but it also needs to meet the zoning. And this says that we have to put it in the most appropriate zoning. Doesn't say we have to put it in one that's acceptable. There was a gun range that made it through the Planning Commission a few years ago. That was down on 20 Mile. It's called a 20 Mile Industrial Park. And I think that's where an indoor gun range belongs, is light industrial. Light industrial just fits in more. There's nothing in light industrial that I would want to live next to. I think that's probably the reason there's light industrial zoning there. So you not only have the responsibility to make sure this business meets the criteria, but according to the town codes, it also must be put in the most appropriate zoning that we have. And I believe that's light industrial. Just for reference, when Freedom Arms had their planning commission meeting and they wanted to put a gun range down on 20 Mile, there was exactly 0 people there to protest it, to speak against it. So the difference between that and this is obviously the location. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next up, please. Name and address, please.
Yep. Okay, so it's right side up. Cool. Yes, my name is Jimmy Hawkins. I live at 15201 Aucklet Street. So my house is one of the ones that backs up to the shared entrance on Pelican Street there that will go into the gun range's parking lot. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council, the 100 or so of you on Facebook out there. As a firearm owner myself, I agree that Parker could support a facility for its citizens to obtain the proper training one should have in order to handle and own firearms. I would probably be a customer of such a business. However, this proposed location is not the proper place for this business due to its close proximity to neighborhood houses. A location further away from neighborhoods and closer to an industrial area would be more appropriate. The consultant Back 40 has hired, Range Development Services, seems to agree with this based on the locations of their previous projects. That's what's up on the screen here. Might be a little hard, the small text. You can probably zoom in a little more.
Carol, can you zoom in a little bit on that, please?
You may move it, son. There you go. There. On this table, you can see a list of developments Range Development Services has consulted on, the size of them, and the distance to neighborhoods with houses, and comments about the surrounding area. They have never consulted on building a gun range that is closer than 500 feet to a neighborhood with houses. Back 40 would be approximately 200 feet away from Parker homestead lots. You can also see these locations are typically located near industrial areas where they are more harmonious with their surroundings and include natural buffers such as woods. My concern isn't with the normal patrons that would visit Back 40, but more so the attention it would attract from criminals after hours. As we know, criminals are not the brightest people. No matter what security measures Back 40 puts in, it will attract attention from criminals attempting to break into it. This is evident from other gun shops in the suburban Denver area having successful or attempted smash and grabs at their locations. Just this past January, a shop in Castle Rock had this occur, and a former Parker gun store has a history of late-night burglaries too. If the Parker police were to get a call for criminal activity at Back 40, there's a very good chance the perps would flee towards Parker Homestead, since the Back 40 parking lot will share an entrance with our neighborhood. If they flee on foot, there's even a chance a criminal will end up hiding in my yard, since I back up to this parking lot. While I'm trained to use my firearm to protect myself and my family, the city should avoid the risk to its citizens and have Back 40 located somewhere further away from a neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next up, please. You know the routine.
I do. Hello, my name is Amelia Pierce, and I live at 15215 Auckland Street in Parker, 80134. And the map's not up there anymore, but I live right next door to the gentleman who just spoke. So my backyard, yes, my backyard backs up right there. And I want to say that I think that a gun range in Parker would be great. I think your facility is beautiful and will be great, but not in that location. I am against the location of the range. I feel that it belongs in an industrial area, not 200 feet behind homes. It is not in harmony with the community. I feel that it does not meet the 9 criteria, including but not limited to location, safety, and sound. I noticed in the conditions it states that Back 40 has agreed to a sound study after it is built and operating, but I want to know how that sound will travel. What caliber of guns will you allow? And will you be renting automatic weapons for the range? All of these will sound different, and I am worried how that sound will travel outside of the building. The gun range could also attract crime, which is a safety issue for the people who live just 200 feet from the building. I don't believe that Back 40 should be my Back 40. When I bought that home, I knew it was going to be a commercial space, but never did I ever think that it would be an indoor gun range. I believe that should be an industrial area, like other people have stated. I'm totally fine with ice cream shop, local restaurant, anything. I do think that will be good for the community. But you also take in consideration that Gold Rush, where my children attend, is less than a mile away. They are also putting in a daycare facility that will be newborns 6 months to 5 years old at the corner across from the field. And they're also putting in the nursing home. We also have the church right there. We have the stadium, the baseball fields. We have the open space and the park where we can walk to, which is in you can see where the pool is up there. That's all space for kids and families to go. And I feel that it does not fit in harmony with the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next up, sir.
Are you interested in name and address?
Yes. in case you were wondering, why don't you give us your name and address?
Good evening. My name's Calvin Craig. I live at 19614 Culpeper Circle, Parker, Colorado. I'm here in support of the shooting range. It's a facility that I would be using along with members of my family, and I know others in Parker that would also use the range. My daughter is a senior at Ponderosa High School, and she is very much interested in having an opportunity to learn. I've already taught her some shooting, but it's always been in an outdoor area versus a nice controlled facility like this where she could get even better training than what my experience could give her. I do appreciate the concerns of some of those in the community towards this business, gun sales, noise, and air pollution, particularly if these people have never been to an indoor shooting range and have never experienced the safety measures and noise reduction methods used. So I'll address some of those, at least from my perspective. Based on the testimony at the Planning Commission meeting, we learned that if this business was to be only a store selling guns and related items, there would have been no need for this process. A standalone firearm selling store would be allowed per the Town of Parker rules for a new business, and the opposition would not be able to stop the business from going in. Therefore, my take on some of these objections is that the opponents are simply using the idea of a shooting range as an end around to stop a legitimate gun store that will also have a shooting range as part of the facility. As to the noise concerns, there was ample testimony at that planning meeting that there would not be appreciable noise generated by the shooting range. Having myself used a few shooting ranges in the metro area, I can personally state that a range will be less noisy than the semis and dump trucks currently using Chambers Road. I use Chambers Road daily for my route to and from work, and often on the weekends to visit my brother in Westminster. So I've experienced this extra traffic noise firsthand. As to the pollution, at the Planning Commission meeting, the owner and the consultant, FCC Consulting, described the HVAC system to be used and explained that the lead particulates would be contained within the filters of the sophisticated HVAC system and keeping the air both inside and outside of the range safe. The archery and shooting range fit into the larger recreational area here, including the possibility of an archery range at the Hess Reservoir, which could only be used during good weather, so this facility will give people a chance to have an indoor archery range. Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Name and address, please.
Ian Elfner, 15750 East Indian Brook Circle. The gun range will not be in harmony or harmonious with the character of the surrounding area in the neighborhood as it exists today. I think we all know what's in the area. It's been recited multiple times tonight, so I won't get into that. The proposed project is not free from disagreement or conflict free. As you'll see by the definition, which I put up here for harmonious or harmony, the mere disagreement or contention within the community that you're seeing tonight shows that it's not in harmony. We're split about 50-50 people coming up here tonight, which shows that there's no seeing eye to eye or no agreement between the parties. I am opposed to this being located in the location that's being proposed. I think it'd be a great project for the community, but I sure as heck wouldn't want to live there right next to it, I'll tell you that much. So when you look at the word harmony, let's take a close look at it and dumb this thing down a little bit for all of us. So, harmony. There's a couple different definitions or ways that you can review it. So, forming a pleasing or consistent whole. Synonyms for that word, or that portion of the definition, would be matching, compatible, well matched. And then you go below that, you'll see free from disagreement or dissent, which we clearly have here tonight, disagreement. Amicable, a synonym, amicable, agreeable, conflict-free, compatible, in harmony, one of mind, seeing eye to eye, which clearly isn't happening tonight. and free from disagreement, which I think we all know what's happening here this evening. So everybody speaking is really making the case that this is not in harmony, as you're seeing. You know, one other thing I do want to get into is talking just to show you guys distances real quick. Douglas County Firearms, the distance, 746 feet to the nearest residential. Magnum Shooting Center, all of these are new facilities or newer facilities. 809 feet from the nearest residential. Centennial Gun Club, 1,980. I think you guys get the point. This is 200 feet is what's being proposed. Perhaps Colorado Springs, Castle Rock, and Centennial know something that you guys need to know and put it in the appropriate area. I was gonna just play some sounds of some machine gun going off, but I decided against that. Okay. That's it.
Thank you very much. Next up, please. Just as a warning, he's the last one on deck, so if you're waiting for something,
Hello.
this is your time. Name and address, please.
Scott Wells, 11817 Diorio Street, Parker, Colorado, 80134. Thank you for the time this evening. Try to make it quick. I think everything's just about been said at this point. I'm against the proposed location for the gun range, and just wanted to make a couple points. The noise expert said that it'd be similar to car doors slamming. Imagine hundreds of car doors slamming all at the same time, and you live 200 feet away from that, which I could throw a baseball and hit your house, so it's not very far. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's a range. One of the arguments was that we need this. It's like a necessity. We don't have anything around the area like this. I'm pretty sure there's a range that just opened in Franktown. There's a gun shop right down the street here, and they're going to open an archery, or that's proposed in the reservoir planning, I think, also an archery area. So it does seem like there's some options not too far around. And then the last point, just that it's harmonious with the surrounding area. They're all sports facilities: baseball, soccer, track and field. You know, they'll be opening trails around the reservoir so you can hike, run. There's biking opportunities. These are all things I would consider sports. I don't consider shooting a sport, although it's already been decided that that is. I won't argue that. But all those other sports or activities, you know, they all promote being outdoors, getting fresh air, physical fitness. They bring the community together. The proposed gun range, it's going to be indoors. I don't think you can shoot a gun anywhere else around the area other than in the range. Some people said you'd be breathing in lead. I'm not an expert on that. Overall, it does seem like a divisive issue, if anything, though. So those are the reasons I'm against it. Thank you for the time again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.